Good evening. I'd like to call tonight's regular Town Council meeting of Monday, June 17th to order, please. And next is the Pledge of Allegiance. If we can please all stand if you are able. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And roll call, please.
Okay. Councilor Boganski?
Present.
Councilor Lewis?
Present.
Councilor Balboni?
Present.
Councilor Carey?
Present.
Mayor Delnicki?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Siracusa?
Present.
Councilor King?
Here.
Councilor Fitzgerald?
Here.
Councilor Pendleton?
Present.
Okay, moving on. Item 4, Mayor's remarks. Just a few comments. Wednesday, June 19th, the South Windsor Town offices will be closed in observance of Juneteenth Independence Day. Connecticut added Juneteenth, celebrated on June 19th annually as an official state holiday beginning in 2023, following its recognition as a federal holiday in 2021. Beginning on Tuesday, June 18th, Connecticut will be under an excessive heat warning. We will have 4 days of temperatures over 90 degrees. The predicted temperature for Thursday is 98 degrees inland, and it will feel even hotter due to high humidity with heat index values up to 106 possible. Please take some precautions to avoid heat exhaustion, stay hydrated, seek shade, take breaks, and time your activities. Plan physical tasks for the morning or evening when temperatures are cooler. If you experience heat stress, seek medical assistance promptly. As I stated earlier, town offices will be closed on Wednesday, June 19th. However, the community center will be open all day until 8 p.m. and may be used as a cooling center. Lastly, keep your furry friends in the home during the hottest time of the day, and please do not take them to the store with you and leave them in your car, even with the windows cracked open. Thank you. Moving on to item 5, adoption of the agenda. Councilor Lewis.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? Deputy Mayor Siracusa.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to make a friendly amendment to move item 17A and 17B after item 7 and before item 8.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any other items for a change? Councilor Balboni.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to make a friendly amendment as well. I'd like to remove item 13D, the discussion item about Parks and Rec, from the agenda.
Second. Yeah. Okay.
Any other items? Any other further discussions? All those in favor of the agenda as amended?
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Item 6, communications and reports from the town manager. Mr. Maniscalco.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In terms of the Main Street Chapel test boring, I know we had this at our last one of our last council meetings. It was brought up by a couple residents. Basically the individuals that they did see that were out there after doing some additional looking into this were from Call Before You Dig. They were making the markings, and Public Works was doing some test borings to ensure the condition and composite of the road. Once those borings are done and they've had the chance to do the appropriate evaluations, they'll work on doing a rehabilitation design or redesign of the whole road, dependent on how the test borings come out. And they'll also provide residents with an opportunity to comment and review their proposed designs moving forward. In terms of state grants and capital funding, last week the town received additional funding through 2 state grants, one being the motor vehicle tax cap grant of $726,000, and the other being the educational cost sharing grant of $407,000. These funds, together with the recommendation of the Finance Director and through the use of staff discretion, were allocated to the capital budget for the current fiscal year. The Capital Projects Committee was asked to prioritize additional capital projects for these funds. 2024 South Windsor graduates, now that the school year has concluded, I wanted to take a moment to congratulate all of the South Windsor teachers and students on a year well done. I would like to especially recognize all of the 2024 South Windsor High School graduates and wish them well on their future endeavors. We had a meeting with Marcus Communications last week. I had the opportunity to meet with Marcus Communications last week related to a new cell tower at the Trax Animal Shelter. The tower has already been approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission. The project will help to meet some specific needs in that area. Our hope is to have the building of the tower funded by the cell carriers. In order to do this, we'll be bringing forward some management, maintenance, and advertising agreements between the town and Marcus Communications moving forward. Additionally, during that meeting, we discussed the great news that we are looking at and working with Verizon to go on our new tower over at VMP. So that's in the works and should be approved hopefully very soon. Street and open space acceptance for Chestnut Ridge subdivision. The town staff has reviewed and are recommending the acceptance of the road and open space for the subdivision. As a result, the council should expect that there will be a resolution approving and accepting both as town open space and a town road at your next council meeting. We had a statewide emergency management drill last week. As you could see, I wrote this report before then. Just to kind of fill all of you in, that emergency management drill was focused on our elections and ensuring that our election processes remain safe and secure through both cybersecurity attacks as well as physical attacks on different polling locations and ballot locations. I think our staff did a great job at answering the large majority of the questions that were pumped out from the state. Our registrars and our town clerk did a wonderful job at coming up with good answers for a lot of the questions as well. And it also elicited a lot of thought and comment from everybody involved. And there's a couple items that we're going to be looking into and moving some additional plans forward as we do that. And then lastly, as the mayor noted, I wanted to follow up with the extreme heat weather notice that's gone out. The governor has implemented the extreme heat protocol. As a result, the town has the library that will be open most days, as well as this building throughout the week. And then on Wednesday, since that's Juneteenth, and the community and town offices will be closed, the community center will be open from 7:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. that day. And that's all I have to report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Councilor Lewis?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Maniscalco, for your report. Great news about the grants. I was curious, is the educational cost sharing grant of $407,000, does that go to the Board of Ed or does it come to the town?
So the town receives education cost sharing funds, and then it's our job to allocate them to the Board of Ed. So that's how we typically do that in the budget process. Since this is an overage amount, we have moved it on to capital because there are education capital projects that can then get allocated to.
Okay, thank you, that makes sense. And with Marcus Communications, you said the word "our hope." I was going to ask, how likely is the hope, but then you kind of answered the question in what you read next. What percentage cost would they end up being able to cover if all things go well?
Percentage cost to recover
Of the tower?
Of the cost of the tower, 100% is the plan.
100%?
Yeah, we're planning on not having any town funds expended on the tower.
Thank you.
Councilor Pendleton?
Thank you. Sorry. Mr. Maniscalco, I promise you I will do the happy dance when we get Verizon on the tower down at VMP. Been trying for how many months or how long? A year and a half, two years?
Yeah.
Just today, I was on the phone with our town manager, and the phone call dropped 6 times. 6 times. We have no service down at that end. So please, I'm going to do the I've been asking, and I want to see Mr. Summers come in here, and I'm going to be so happy. So thank you so much for working with Verizon, getting them on there. And congratulations on the grants overage and us working on capital, especially with the Board of Ed.
Councilor Balboni?
To be clear, once again, I'm going to talk about the grants and capital funding. This $1.1 million, there was no way to put that back into the budget because we had already approved it, I assume, and somehow reduce what the taxpayers are going to be covering.
So that's in this year? Are you talking about next year? That starts after July 1? Because you can't take the funds that we received in this year and put them in next year.
Excellent, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Seeing nothing further, thank you, Mr. Maniscalco. Moving on to item 7, public input for items on the agenda. Public input shall not exceed 30 minutes. When recognized by the mayor, and the speaker shall approach the lectern, give their name and address. Speakers shall avoid personal attacks or impugning or alleging an improper motive to any person. The speakers may address the council on any item on the agenda. The speakers shall limit their speaking time to 5 minutes. Anyone who'd like to come forward, if you signed up? Anyone like to come for any item on the agenda?
I'm Sidney Michaelak, 465 Near Warfer Road. I'm talking, hello. I'm talking about the abatement for child care providers that was discussed at the last meeting. If I could, I'd like to read an email that my husband wrote that he wanted it read into the record tonight. His name is Robert Michaelak, also 465 Near Warfer Road. May I read that to you? Thank you. Oh, it's addressed to, hi Kathy. I submitted a comment for tonight's meeting, but it was at 3:20 or so. I didn't see the agenda until 3 o'clock. Would you be able to have my comment read at the meeting? Here it is. Good afternoon. I'm unable to attend tonight's town council meeting, but wanted to comment on the daycare tax abatement. I was present at the meeting when it was first brought up by Deputy Mayor Siracusa. At that meeting, it was suggested that a 50% abatement is reasonable and cited Ellington and Coventry as local examples of towns that have implemented this program. Upon looking at the agenda, the target 50% seemingly has been whittled to around 20% by just allowing the home to be abated. I can tell you that living in a child care home, the entire home and the property are bound by endless rules and regulations. Most of our yards have playgrounds and are kids safe. The providers in town have been doing this for years, and it's incredibly important to attract new licensed providers to provide a home-based and often more affordable means of childcare. Please consider increasing the percentage of abatement that will have meaningful impact to the providers to stay in the profession longer and to attract new providers. Thank you for considering this. Robert Michaelak, 465 Niederwerfer Road. That's the end of that.
Thank you.
And then, can I talk again? Do I have to say who I am again to talk my turn? I don't know how to
Well, you
do
have
that.
3 minutes.
I have 3 minutes. Well, that's fine. Same thing he said. We don't just use our house for the daycare. We have huge yards with wonderful toys and things that the kids are in. We're outside all the time. At my house particularly, we go outside every day. Rain, shine, snow. We have a blast. We use the yard a lot. And that's all. So on behalf of the providers in South Windsor, I thank you for talking about this, and I hope you'll consider what we're asking. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to come forward for any item on the agenda? And if you can please sign in.
Yes, my name's Mike Willitson. I live at 50 Belden Road here in town. I was here to speak after the police chief gave his report on the traffic situation on Governor's Highway, or should I give my discussion
Well, this
now?
is for public input for
Okay.
items on the agenda.
Well, it seems a little preliminary to give it before the police chief gives his report, but in any case, I want to thank the town council for allowing us to be heard on this matter. My name is Mike Willitson. I live at 50 Belden Road. We've resided there, my wife Beth and I, since 1986. The road is only approximately a half a mile long. When we moved to town, there were 13,000 people here in town, and now it's more than double that. At the time, there were 8 houses and 3 cornfields on Belden Road. About 25 to 28 years ago, I was part of a group that addressed with the town council at that time an increase in tractor-trailer traffic on Belden Road and Governor's Highway. At that time, many options were discussed to address. Ed Havens was assigned to meet with us off to the side. The town council had agreed at that time to signs prohibiting tractor-trailer traffic on Governor's and Belden's Road. There was a $99 ticket that would be assessed to a truck driver who was pulled over on that. And also we were told that the GPS companies, at that time GPS was coming out, and they would be notified to put in their database that those roads were cut off to 18-wheelers. This practice ran pretty well for a good number of years. If there was a problem, we would call the town manager at that time, Mr. Galligan, and he would do his best to resolve that. The traffic has really begun to pick up when DATCO and CREC school bus companies moved from west of Route 5 on Ident Road to 710 North Nutmeg. Without exaggeration, we are seeing 30 to 40 school buses per day on Belden Road. The largest current problem, garbage trucks. We have garbage trucks from neighboring towns beginning at 4:15 to 4:30 in the morning, coming down Belden Road, turning left onto Governor's Highway, right onto North Nutmeg, and going down to All-American Waste Company. I own a property, a small business property on Burnside Avenue in East Hartford. I have followed these trucks down School Street in East Hartford, right onto Route 5, and then they turn right onto Ellington Road and come through our neighborhoods instead of staying on Route 5 and going all the way up and turning right onto Governor's Highway and then a quick left onto North Nutmeg. The police chief probably doesn't want to hear this, but I've stopped a couple of the trucks. I've pulled over in the middle of the road, gotten out, asked them to come down and talk to me, and I've very nice conversations with the gentleman, and they just say, we don't want to drive on Route 5. We don't want to be bothered with the traffic, with all the traffic lights, so we come this way through Ellington Road and up through Belden and Governor's Highway. I've seen Windsor garbage trucks come off Bissell Bridge and go straight across onto Ellington Road from Windsor, instead of turning left onto Route 5 and going up and then turning a quick right onto Governor's and a quick left. I leave my house, without exaggeration, at 4:30 every morning, Monday through Friday. Sometimes the trucks have already begun, the garbage trucks. They're all headed to All-American Waste at 600 North Nutmeg, I'm assuming to dump their trucks, empty their trucks, then head back. When this phenomena began a number of years ago, I called the town manager's office 3 times. I was advised, not by the current town manager, but I believe somebody on his staff, to try calling the town manager or the mayor's office in East Hartford, because at first all the trucks were identified as being East Hartford trucks. And I told him I think your office would carry a little more weight if you made the phone call versus a resident. As more businesses have moved into north and south Nutmeg addresses, we now have employees late in the morning. They're speeding up on our roads. The posted speed limit is 25 to 30 miles per hour. I'm retired now. I'm outside working. I motion to them to slow down. I get the middle finger. I get expletives yelled out the window. And I have been speaking with neighbors who can attest to this. And we have no police presence in our neighborhood, none. I don't say this to be confrontational or to be argumentative. It's just the way it is. I'm sure they have bigger business going on in other areas of the town. But it's a real problem as the area has been built up and there's bus stops and there's kids and there's more people walking out on the streets. Some of these cars, without exaggeration, are going 50 to 60 miles an hour in that half-mile stretch from the Mill on the River restaurant to Governor's Highway. I have a list of all the businesses that, from North Nutmeg. Is that my time? No. I'll wrap it up. These are big, heavy trucks, aerial trucks that take trees down. The one that replaced sand and gravel, Eversource has a place on North Nutmeg where they dispatch. Hartford Provision, still sending their 18-wheelers in the old G. Fox warehouse. I don't know under what guise it is now, but we're still getting 18-wheelers down our streets. And I have to say that my wife and I are not leaving South Windsor. We moved here. We counted on a lot less people to support our families with the middle school and the new library and the new firehouses and all the things that a community comes together to do for the betterment of everybody. And we want to be here. We went to the open houses at all the new schools because they're absolutely beautiful. It's unbelievable. And we don't have a dog in that fight anymore. We don't have children in the school system, but we care about it. And we want them to have all the opportunities, so we support that, even though it adds to our tax burden. Our quality of life here in South Windsor on Belden and Governors has been somewhat diminished. It's very worrisome at times. But it hasn't been adversely affected. I'm of a certain, and I'll end with this, I'm of a certain political persuasion, and I'm not always, the party I support isn't always the one that is in control of the town council and the different boards. But I have noticed over 36 years that the town has continued to move forward. And wonderful things have been done in this town, and it's really a wonderful place to live, to raise a family, and even to live out your retirement years. And on these two small streets, well, Governor's Highway and Belden Road, we're just asking for a little consideration and asking for a little assistance in this matter. It's very worrisome at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that'd like to come forward on items on the agenda?
My name is Tim Wenzel. I live at 630 Governor's Highway, and I've lived there for about 45 years now. First of all, let me say thank you to the council for listening to us this evening. As you can tell, most of the audience is here on this issue.
You can speak closer to the mic. That would
Sure,
be perfect.
sure. That better?
Yes.
You can tell most of the people here this evening are here because of this issue. It's important to us, and it's been a long battle, if you will. Years ago, to give you just a little bit of quick history, when the road didn't used to go through, there used to be a dirt road between where Newbury branched off from Governor's. When that was proposed to be opened, all the neighborhoods met with town government, and at that point, it was agreed that if that road was opened, that truck traffic would then be banned on our residential part of the neighborhood, because, well, so that's what we're really doing, is merging the industrial, which was intended to be set aside separate from the residential area, and obviously that's why the road didn't used to connect. Once the road connected, for many years, the signs worked, traffic wasn't that bad. Lately, what's happened, in addition to the heavy amount of heavy truck traffic, the road is disintegrated. I shovel out of my driveway the roadway that got broken up. Public Works does a great job. They come in and patch it. A week later, it disintegrates because it's hard to patch. The road is clearly insufficient. But with that history, I would like to make a comment that really, I think, possibly a working group or some methodology needs to be established. Perhaps weight limits are an appropriate way to do it, by establishing a lighter weight limit that's enough for school buses but not for heavy trucks. Perhaps there's even some savings in the rebuilding that's planned for Governor's Highway, because it wouldn't need to be rated for 80,000-pound trucks. It would need to be rated for 35-odd thousand, and perhaps that's a way to do it as well. And lastly, I'd like to comment on the report from the State Traffic Commission. As I'm sure most of you know, and I'm a little bit experienced in this area. I am an engineer, and as many of you know, I was on planning and zoning for many years and was chairman for an extended time as well. The State Traffic Commission was created by the legislature. The legislature did not adopt the rules that the State Traffic Commission appears to be quoting in their report. So that was the enabling legislation clearly did not do that. That was a state agency, and when you read that, there is no possible road anywhere that can meet that criteria. It's clearly impossible, and it's unrealistic. And I don't believe that it's really then, because it was not a legislative action, that was simply a state commission, perhaps, in my humble opinion, overstating their authority, and putting in their regulations that, first of all, make no sense, and second of all, could never, if you look at them carefully, be obtained. So I would hope and encourage perhaps that the town would ask the town attorney to look into the fact that the enabling legislation really does not apply to any of these detailed rules that would have been made at best by the state rulemaking process. So lastly, to close, I think that what the residents are asking for is really some way of maintaining our residential nature to our street as opposed to being a highway. I think the name is a misnomer. I think there's even been talk about maybe could we change the name to Governor's Way or something to try to make our point clear. But clearly, I think what we're trying to say here is it's important to us, for the children, all of those kind of things, that we figure out a way to separate the heavy trucks that rattle through. With the road being so poor, your whole house sometimes shakes, you know, especially because they drive in the middle of the night. A lot of truckers work 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning because they're making deliveries or they're going to the different warehouses. And it's really changed the character, and it's something that we hope that you all will take very seriously and realize that we haven't been here just once. We've been here many, many times on this issue, and it's something that's just very important to the residents. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you also for all the hard work and the long evenings you put in.
Thank you. And did you sign in on this?
I will.
Thank you very much. Anyone else like to come forward for any item, for the item on the agenda? Any item on the agenda? Going once? Going twice? 3 times. Okay, moving on to 17A and B, Deputy Mayor Siracusa.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to go to executive council or executive session and to invite the town manager, Michael Maniscalco, and assistant town manager, Scott Roberts, and also the HR director to discuss item 17A, an agreement between the town of South Windsor and Public Works, AFSCME Local 1303-028, Council Number 4, and item 17B to discuss an agreement between the town of South Windsor and South Windsor Police Union, Nutmeg Independent Public Safety Employees Union.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll be back as soon as we are done with our executive session. like to call the meeting back to order. If I can indulge the council at the moment, there was a letter or an email that did not get read into the record under item 7. If I can get a consensus, if I can read it now. Thank you. It's an email from Peter Andrews. Dear Madam Mayor Delnicki and esteemed town council members, I am a lifelong resident of Edgewood Drive and now Cody Circle, writing to express my support for a tractor-trailer truck prohibition along Governor's roadway, as well as the implementation of a weight limit requirement. This reasonable action within the town council's ability is necessary act to protect the traffic and pedestrian safety of town residents living around and along Governor's and Belden Road area. This is not a new issue for South Windsor. In fact, this was a concern for town residents as well as the South Windsor Town Council itself, going all the way back to 1985 with the increased industrialization to this part of town. Nearly 40 years later, this issue is front and center with all concerns fully realized. Now is the time to send a strong and deliberate message to large corporate businesses developing in surrounding towns that South Windsor will not be their throughway for tractor-trailer traffic. Let's at least have the good sense and character to implement smart changes to protect this area of town and its residents before it's too late, something the prior town council leadership has seemed to overlook. I urge you to not allow South Windsor to be an easy and direct cut-through route for surrounding towns' tractor-trailer truck traffic. I believe only enforceable implementation will be enough to mitigate these very real concerns. The current danger and problem we already have will worsen significantly and abruptly without strong and deliberate action now. Thank you all for your time and dedication to South Windsor's best interests. This is from Peter Andrews at 80 Cody Circle. Thank you.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
The gentleman that could not be here, he was at our last meeting, and he wrote us an email. Did we receive a copy of that email that evening? John?
Holochek?
Yeah, that's it. Because I know he sent us an email, but I'm not sure if that's the one that he handed out to us at the last meeting. Kathy, do you remember?
Does it say to read it in the record, though?
Well, he said he couldn't be here and he'd like it submitted and read. Because he did state that at the last meeting he couldn't be here, so I asked him to give us a copy of that email. I don't know if this is the same one, but I did bring copies. If we could just read that, because he did warn us that he couldn't be here.
You want to read it?
Please, oh, sure. I don't mind. It's a big one. Thanks so much. Yeah, go right ahead, Lovey. There you go.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor and Town Councilors, thank you for your volunteer service to the town. I write you tonight regarding item 13A on your agenda, what do we say that? OTSTA, thank you. Report on Governor's Highway regarding the possibility of a through truck prohibition. Since the report, buried in the agenda for Monday night, was not made available till late Friday, a complete review is not contemplated here, but already I can see errors in it. It states that the roadway is 28 to 30 feet wide, with travel lanes 12 to 14 feet wide. As an engineer by training and profession, I find this patently false, having measured the width myself just west of the Baker Lane Governor's Highway intersection at 24 feet. As a side note, this is the most fearful part of my bicycle ride, as the travel lane is only 11 feet wide or so, less with the annual potholes and no shoulder, as much of the road east of here is. A couple of my neighbors, who are also degreed engineers, have measured the road width at only 22 or 23 feet down by Governor's Highway Route 30 Ellington Road intersection and have reported such to another town body. The report states that homes have moderate to large setbacks from the road. Anyone who has spent any time walking or driving on Governor's just east of Baker Lane will observe half a dozen houses that are built quite close to the roadway on both sides, likely below the South Windsor Plan of Improvement recommendation of 40-foot setback, such that widening Governor's Highway would be quite problematic. I find the suggestion of a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit here ridiculous given the narrowness of the road, which OTSA measured. Besides, they based the 30-mile-an-hour recommendation on a report from 1962 when Governor's Highway stopped at the intersection of Old Newberry Road and did not continue through to Route 5. The 1962 recommendation certainly predated the Belden Estates Cody Circle subdivision with its many children. The current plan for the 2025 reconstruction of Governor's Highway involves completely reconstructing the pavement underlayment and pavement layers to withstand 80,000-pound, fully laden 18-wheeler tractor trailers. Just so you are aware, the cost to build or substantially reconstruct a road to meet these standards is in the neighborhood of $1 million per mile. As page 7 to 9 of the SLAM Plan of Development has earmarked Governor's Highway as a location to take steps to limit truck traffic, I ask that the Town Council pass a resolution aimed at both saving significant construction costs and establishing an ironclad method of limiting truck traffic. The resolution could read as follows. Be it resolved that the Town Council of South Windsor directs the town engineer and his staff and contractors to alter the draft and final designs for the 2025-2026 reconstruction of Governor's Highway easterly of Baker Lane and through to Ellington Road to meet a 34,000-pound weight capacity limit. This same limit shall apply to any portion of Belden Road that is reconstructed. This will enable the local traffic authority to put in place weight restrictions with an appropriately worded exception for local deliveries that would significantly limit truck traffic in accordance with the intent embodied in the 1986 Town Council minutes regarding connecting the then separate sections of Governor's Highway and the 2007-era Town Council ordinance prohibiting tractor-trailer traffic. For your awareness, a fully laden school bus weighs 34,000 pounds, while an empty tractor-trailer, sometimes called a semi-truck, weighs 35,000 pounds. As some of you ran on platforms of saving the town money, a credit can be claimed for saving on road construction costs, something the town always seems to borrow money, issue bonds to perform. Thank you for your consideration tonight. John Howelchick, BS Certified Engineer.
Thank you, Councilor Fitzgerald. Okay, moving on to item 8, adoption of minutes of previous meeting. Councilor Fitzgerald.
I move to approve the June 3rd, 2024 Town Council regular meeting minutes. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby approves the minutes of the regular Town Council meeting of June 3rd, 2024.
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Seeing none, motion passes.
Abstain.
Oh, okay. One abstention. Roll call, please.
Counselor Boganski?
Yes.
Counselor Lewis?
Abstain.
Counselor Balboni?
Aye.
Counselor Carey?
Aye.
Mayor Del Nicky?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Siracusa?
Yes.
Counselor King? Yes. Counselor Fitzgerald? Yes. Counselor Pendleton? Yes. All right. 8 yeses, 1 abstention.
Okay, motion passes by 8 to 1 abstention. Okay, moving on to item 9, communications, liaisons, officers, and boards directly responsible to the council. Seeing none, moving on to item 10, reports from committees. Seeing none, moving on to item 11, consent agenda. 11B1, Councilor Carey.
Motion to approve 11B1 as a second reading on the consent agenda. Resolution appointing Michael Olet, Republican, as a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Be it resolved, the South Windsor Town Council hereby appoints Michael Olet as a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission for a term ending November 10th, 2025, to replace the unexpired term of Michael LeBlanc.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Seeing none, motion passes. Okay, quickly moving on to 11B2 through 11B3, Councilor Pendleton.
Motion to approve 11B2 through 11B2 as a second reading on the consent agenda. Resolution 11B2, resolution appointing Bala Ramasamy as a member of the Water Pollution Control Authority, be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby appoints Bala Ramasamy as a member, and it says R again, it needs to be corrected to a D, as a member of the Water Pollution Control Authority for a term ending November 30th, 2024, to replace the unexpired term of Steve Wagner. Just a second.
And,
You want to do them
Yep,
all or
yep.
individual? All?
yep,
Okay.
please, thank you.
Okay, 13, I'm sorry. And 3 is resolution appointing Alan Cavanero as a member of the Housing and Fair Rent Commission. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby appoints Alan Cavanero as a member of the Housing and Fair Rent Commission for a term ending November 30, 2026, to replace the unexpired term of James Bailey.
We have a second? Any discussion?
Just want to make sure that we correct that R to a D, Kath. Thanks.
Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Okay. We are going to now suspend the regular town council meeting for our public hearing. The public hearing is to receive citizen input on the use of LoCIP funds for the police department elevator modernization project. Ms. Seners, if you can please read the public notice.
To be published in the Journal Enquirer, June 7th, 2024, legal ad, Town of South Windsor. Notice is hereby given that the South Windsor Town Council has set Monday, June 17th at 8 p.m. in the council chambers of the South Windsor Town Hall, 1540 Sullivan Ave, South Windsor, Connecticut, as the time and place for a public hearing to receive citizen input on the appropriation of $175,208.41 of LoCIP funds to cover costs associated with the modernization of the South Windsor Police Department elevator, dated at South Windsor, Connecticut, this 4th day of June 2024, attested to by Catherine Senerth, Executive Assistant.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak to the council during this public hearing regarding the use of LoCIP funds for the police department elevator modernization project? Is there anyone who would like to speak during this public hearing? Would you like to come up forward? Anything? Going once? Going twice? Okay, that's the quickest public hearing. At this time, I'll close the public hearing and we'll take a straw poll. It's not a scientific poll, but those in favor of using the LoCIP funds, please raise your hand. Those against? Seeing none? Okay. Okay. We will now resume the regular town council meeting. Okay, we have 13A miscellaneous, none, so, or 11A miscellaneous, none. Moving on to unfinished business. Smoking, the discussion item, smoking ordinance in the parks. Deputy Mayor Siracusa.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess I would like to start off with asking the attorney if you have any updates for us on just if there are any requirements for us to have designated areas. I believe that was really the only major point of kind of contention that we had. And then another one was it seems kind of absurd to have like people serving jail time for this ordinance. I don't know if that is a requirement for habitual offenders of any ordinance, but if you can explain those two things. Thank you.
So there is a large swath of options available to you. I've prepared an ordinance based on some of your other ordinances. You can pick and choose how you do this. A lot of towns have these no smoking bans in public parks. There are a variety of ways that other towns do this. Some do it just by means of a public policy adoption that the Parks and Recs Commission has as a policy initiative with no real enforcement mechanism. Some towns have a civil penalty. Some towns have an ordinance with an infraction and possible jail time as a criminal offense. Just by way of background, you have a whole host of other ordinances that impose jail time for a variety of offenses, including loitering or panhandling. All right, so those are available to you as options. The dollar amount is your general penalty for infractions. It's $99 set by your prior ordinances. It hasn't been updated in many, many years. The current statutory maximum is $250 per offense. Your ordinance goes back to the 70s, and it's $99, because that was the maximum that you could impose when that ordinance was adopted. So that's why that's in there. You can handle this however you want. I'd like some direction from you all as to how you want to impose this or implement this. Is it a civil penalty? Is it an infraction? Is it something that you want the police department to have the ability to arrest people for? You know, that's up to you how you want to implement it. But there is a whole variety of ways of going about it. And every single town does it some different way. I've seen financial penalties going up to $250 and as low as $20. I've seen jail time up to 10 days, you know, in some instances. So you really have a whole host of directions of what you can do here.
Thank you. Now, what about the requirement for designated areas? Is that?
Well, let me take a step back. When the statute regarding the ability of towns to prohibit smoking on public parks was amended to include cannabis, it included a provision that said if for towns over 50,000 in population, they must include an area where there is a place where people can legally smoke cannabis in public parks. Most towns that are under 50,000 and have these types of prohibitions also allow for a smoking area in public places, just to provide that option. There is no requirement that you have that, but most ordinances and policies that I've seen include some sort of give and take. It's prohibited on fields, it's prohibited in the parking lots around playgrounds and fields in public parks, but there might be an area off to one side that people can go during a ball game or whatever to go have a smoke.
That's good to hear, because I think at least my goal would be to remove the smoking from the playgrounds. And I know there was one suggested area that was right next to the soccer fields. I agree with you, not necessarily against smoking or anything like that. People have the freedom to do those types of things, but just getting it away from areas where there's children that are trying to enjoy themselves with their family, that's at least my goal here. So I do.
Some towns have done that by way of a simple policy at the Parks and Rec Department that says we're not going to have smoking on playgrounds and public parks, and leave it up to the Public Works Department or the Parks and Rec Department to establish areas of no smoking, because they know where people use the facilities the most. But again, it's up to you how you want to implement that.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone have anything further? Counselor Carey?
So I would like us to get rid of the, imprisonment thing from it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Counselor Pendleton?
Yeah, I haven't spoken out on this yet. Yes, I am a smoker. I'll admit it to everyone here right now. Unfortunately, I am a smoker. However, for everyone that's out there that does smoke, yes, we do pay our taxes. Yes, we do have claim in our public parks. I am not against a town policy through the Park and Rec Department on no smoking in public parks and only smoking in a designated area. I think changing an ordinance or creating an ordinance is heavy-handed. I think $99 is heavy-handed. I think the prison sentence is heavy-handed. And I think creating an ordinance is heavy-handed. So going with a Park and Rec policy or a town policy, and the signs could be made that say town policy is no smoking in public parks except in designated areas. Leave it up to, as our town attorney said, leave it up to our Park and Recs Department to designate where those smoking areas would be at, but also work in conjunction with the Park Department and the Rec Department and the town manager and our town engineer, whatever we have, that what we own of the land that we own, and the town can decide where those areas may be. If it's somewhere near a road that's maybe near the entrance, I'm thinking Rotary Pavilion, I'm thinking Rotary Park, you go up there. Maybe it's near the entrance to the park, near that road. That's outside of the park limits, you're on a road, or you're near the road, but that just popped into my head. I haven't thoroughly thought it through. But I'm just saying, for our town to look at possible places that are designated areas, there are folks that do need to smoke certain things for medical reasons, and they need the ability to do so without getting in trouble for doing that. But make it a little accommodating to them also, but leave it up to our town. I truly believe an ordinance is way heavy-handed, and we can start with the policy first, and then if it doesn't go well, then we can go ahead with something a little more firm. But I would like to leave it up to our town department and us not be the put the gavel down, this is the way it's gonna be. I don't like that. I like to trust our town departments to be able to make decisions that are based on factual information. So I'm not in favor of this ordinance for that fact. I will, go wherever they tell me to go. If I needed to smoke in a public park, I'd go to any designated area to do so. I'm not disagreeing with that. I get it. I get no smoking in public parks with children, but I also get let the town do its job, looking at all our town properties, because I can't tell you, we have, Mr. Maniscalco, you can verify this, how many town parks do we have, or how much town land do we own? It goes farther than than Nevers Road Park. It goes to VMP, it goes to Lawrence Road, it goes to, help me out, Mr. Major Michael Donnelly.
Rice Street Park.
Rice Street, there's a lot of various places that we here don't know, and I would rather leave it up to the professionals, which is our town employees on the Park and Rec Department, and our town engineers or whoever that would look at our town property to determine a specific location. I would like to do that first before creating an ordinance and being heavy-handed and paying our town attorney to draw up an ordinance when we can try it on our town level first. And if that doesn't, and we can make up signs, can we not, Mr. Maniscalco? We certainly can, right?
Sure, so we can put signs up. I was just talking with the town attorney. The one challenge I think that we're faced with is that if you do a department policy, the enforcement of that policy can be rather difficult. And I know from some of the employees at the Parks and Rec Department, there have been some instances where individuals were smoking around playgrounds and they were asked to leave, and they refused to leave. I think there were even police called in certain instances, and there's not much the police can do because an ordinance is not in place. So that's kind of the reason for going down the road of an ordinance rather than just starting with a town policy, because I think the staff have been trying to work on that, and it's just not.
I'm trying to be as civil as possible. If we have to go heavy-handed with an ordinance because we don't have the backing with a policy and way to enforce that, then okay, then let's go with the ordinance. However, with this ordinance, I would like to see, yes, the imprisonment removed, and designated smoking areas distinguished by our town staff that know the various parks in town and have designated areas for folks to go to. It's not just about the person that smokes the cigarette. So it's about others too that have medical needs or such. So we need to take that in consideration too when we do the ordinance. I hear your plight. Thank you.
And I have to agree with you, Councilor Pendleton. I think people today, there's a few, but I think a majority of smokers are more courteous today of not smoking near children. They will walk off. You're going to have your few that are going to say what the town manager just did. But to me, I think that's few and far in between, but thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I just want to be clear too. I was approached by many residents, actually some police officers and Parks and Rec staff.
I have to interrupt you.
Oh,
Got
we got 30 more seconds. That's where this came from. I'm here representing the folks that want this to happen, and it was explained by some police officers that they can't enforce certain things because there isn't an ordinance in place. And I know that since I was in the Little League in this town, there have been signs put up where there's no smoking allowed at the fields. And I was just at Rye Street a couple weekends ago, coaching 4- and 5-year-old girls. I believe I see one of those girls' fathers in the crowd, and it was an absolute nightmare what was going on there. It was terrible. And I believe we already went through the work. There are defined areas that the Parks and Rec staff thought of, and I think it's great where those locations are. We got a break?
Yep.
Okay.
Again, we have to suspend the regular town council meeting for our public hearing. The public hearing is to receive citizen input on the use of capital non-reoccurring funds for the police department elevator modernization project. Ms. Senerth, if you can please read the public notice.
To be published in the Journal-Inquirer, June 7th, 2024, legal ad, Town of South Windsor. Notice is hereby given that the South Windsor Town Council has set Monday, June 17th, 2024, 8:15 p.m. in the council chambers of the South Windsor Town Hall, 1540 Sullivan Ave, South Windsor, Connecticut, as the time and place for a public hearing to receive citizen input on the appropriation of $100,000 of capital non-recurring funds to cover costs associated with the Police Department Elevator Modernization Project. Dated at South Windsor, Connecticut, this 4th day of June, 2024, attested to by Catherine Senerth, the Executive Assistant.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public who would like to come speak during this public hearing regarding the use of capital non-recurring funds for the Police Department Elevator Modernization Project? Is there anyone who would like to come forward? Going once? Going twice? Seeing none. At this time, I'll close the public hearing and we'll take a straw poll. The straw poll is a non-scientific poll. For those all in favor of the use of non-reoccurring funds, please raise your hand. Those opposed? Okay. And thank you. And we will now resume the regular meeting. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess my next question would be, this was on our very first agenda, I believe, with this council. I believe, enough time has gone by. I'd like to ask the town attorney, what would the next steps be? Do we have to set a date for a public hearing for this ordinance? Assuming that draft that you fix will remove the imprisonment, as we all would hope that would be removed. What are the next steps in order to
Right,
get this in motion?
the next steps would be to revise it per the discussion tonight, submit it to the town clerk and back to you guys for review, and then you can set a public hearing. You can set a public hearing tonight if you want to, or you could wait till the next meeting. But ultimately, the public hearing has to be reflective of the ordinance that you're going to vote on. So I have to change it, get it back to you, and you can set the public hearing.
Does anybody else have any other changes that you would like to see on that draft, or? Because I would like to set the public hearing for our next meeting.
So you want to set a public hearing at the next meeting and then have a public hearing on the 15th? Is that what you're looking for?
No, I'd like to have the public, we can do that for the next meeting, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So we can set a public hearing tonight?
You can set the public hearing tonight, get the revisions changed and set to the town clerk's office so they're available to the public so they can see it tomorrow, right? And then you can go forward with it at your next meeting. More than enough time between now and the next meeting to do all that.
Councilor Pendleton?
If after reviewing this draft, could we submit any suggestions to you prior to the next meeting? Because this is a draft that it's going up for resolution and we wouldn't be voting it on until the next meeting, so we can still work on it up to that day. As you've said, we can change it.
Right, so the whole purpose of a public hearing is to get citizen input, and if there are changes that arise from that discussion at your next meeting,
Right.
you can adopt changes, amend it, and you can either put it out for the next meeting, or you can vote on it, you can do whatever you want at the next meeting. The whole idea, though, is to get a public hearing with citizen input, at which point, again, if you want to change it based on what you hear from the public, you can do that.
Or we can change it based
Or
on
you
what our
can have your
opinions
own-
may be.
That's
Okay.
right, you can change it as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, want to make a motion to set a public hearing? Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, what's the date of the official?
July
July
1st.
1st. I'd like to make a motion to set a public hearing for the ordinance to prohibit smoking in certain public areas in the town of South Windsor based on our changes we discussed tonight for our July 1st meeting.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? No, there's already a public hearing for 8 o'clock, so we have. Right, so we can do 8:15 or 8:30? Do you want to do 8:15 or 8:30? Okay. You want to,
The friendly amendment would be
To
to
your-
set the date for 8:15 for the previous motion.
Second.
okay. Motion amended to include 8:15 for the public hearing on July 1st. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Seeing none, motion passes. Okay. Moving on to item 12, unfinished business, 12B, Deputy Mayor Siracusa, child tax abatement discussion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, to the public who haven't really been caught up to speed on this, again, I was approached by some individuals in town that wanted us to talk about this in public, and that's what we're doing. I know we have a draft resolution here, so again, I just open up the floor to any counselors that may have any questions. I know we have one of the providers here in the crowd that spoke earlier. I don't know if she'd be willing to answer any questions if you have any for her, but yeah, anybody have any comments to add?
The only thing.
Councilor Lewis?
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think it's a good thing that we have local people who are doing this and caring for children. I think we need to assist them as much as possible. I don't see a downside, and if there is a downside to giving them the abatement, I would like some counselors or someone in the town to share with me what the downsides would be. It can't be a great loss of revenue. It's only going to encourage and help. A couple of years ago, we had a real shortage of childcare. So if we can take a burden off the town and the fourth R with the Parks and Rec by having more families and more towns in town providing the service, I think that's a good thing and we should encourage it.
Councilor King?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The only input that I have in regards to this, and I am not against the abatement whatsoever. However, I would like to be more specific, and let me just reread this just to be clear. Provides a blah, blah, blah. Wait a minute, is this resolution to abate a portion of property tax for certain portion of real estate used for licensed child care facilities. This says effective October 1st, 2022. So this,
state statute.
Oh, this is a state statute. Okay, because at the end it says, be it further resolved the town council.
The state statute first.
Okay.
That's what gives us the
Thank you.
ability to do it.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you for that clarification, Deputy Mayor. My concern is that this does not just affect, and please, Town Manager, if you can be clear with me, that it just is not just someone that has a child care facility in their house. My concern is for those people that have child care facilities that they may be the sole proprietor for, not necessarily a conglomerate, like say a Burger King franchise, just for an example, or KinderCare, thank you, Counselor, but for someone that says, you know what, I don't want to have one in my house, but I want to have one and have a facility for it, I bought it, I paid for it, that this also covers them.
Sure, so I hate to play hot potato with it, but I am going to hot potato this over to the town attorney because he and I discussed
That's fine. That's
the
what he's-
definition of child care
He's paid for that. He's paid for
facilities.
that.
So
Yeah.
I don't know if you have the definition
He's
for
paid
that
for that.
them or.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, though, could you just rephrase what exactly it is
So
you're asking?
my question is, so when we're saying childcare, and again, I just need to be clear, I have no problem with giving the abatement because I agree with my fellow counselor that these are facilities for a number of different reasons. Being the oldest of 7 children, only by the grace of God that I had a mom that stayed home. My dad worked 3 jobs. I get it. However, I just want to make sure that a person that has their own facility that is not at their house is not penalized for having that and not able to get the same abatement if that's their only place, or even if they have, say, 1 or 2 or 3 places, but they're not a conglomerate like your KinderCare, or a better example would be like a Burger King. That's a franchise. We're not abating that. We're abating, no, but more importantly, we're abating the entrepreneur. I don't want to take away from that entrepreneur just because it's not in their house that they don't also get that abatement. And so I just want to be clear. Again, I have no problem with it. I think it's very well needed, especially childcare is just going crazy in our economy. However, just because someone says, I don't want to have it in my house, but I want to buy a facility that I am also paying taxes on, that they don't get that same opportunity to be abated as well.
I don't know that that's actually the case, though, because the way the state statute defines the properties that are being able to be abated are a child care center, a group child care home, or a family child care home. And those have specific definitions under state law. And each of those, I believe, are residential providers, people that are providing the services in a residence. And the way that this resolution is based off of that statute, I think limits it to that residential type of setting. There are other statutes that are available to the town to abate child care centers that are outside the home, but that's not what this was designed to do based on our last discussion. And if you want to address that, I think it's not 12-81LL, but 12-81N, which says that a business which offers child care services to residents of a municipality, provided such business is not regularly engaged in the construction or operation of child care centers, group child care homes, or family child care homes. In other words, not a franchise, to your point. So I think that's available to you. I think we would have to revisit the wording of this resolution, unfortunately, and we wouldn't be able to do it tonight. But that is available to you if you want to expand it to those entrepreneurs that work outside of the residences, if that's what your intention is.
That is my intention, and for my fellow counselors, that's the only reason I'm asking for it. No, I'm not thinking about, I care less about the franchises. You know, they operate under a different set of rules, but for most of the individuals, not just the home care, because I respect them too as entrepreneurs, however, so that other businesses, because that could also increase someone who says, I'll admit, during COVID, I was like, I need to get my kids out my house. I would love to open up. We didn't have the financial resources to do that, but if we knew that we would get an abatement, perhaps, maybe we would have tried to do something like that. So that just encourages that type of thing, as opposed to buying into, say, a franchise, and not only do you get the franchise abatement, but then you also get the South Windsor abatement. So if we could put wording in that, I would have no problem with that at all. Thank you.
Councilor Carey?
That was good discussion. I think I would like us to define some things. I mean, I know it's defined in the regulation, but rather than having people have to go to the state regulation to understand the definitions, I just would like to tighten this up a little bit and actually put the definitions in our, resolution so that everybody knows what we're talking about, and we know what the definitions are and what's included and what's not. I think it's a great idea, but I would like to see that done. And I would be happy to help with that if some.
Councilor Baganski?
Thank you. The third paragraph up from the bottom, talking about the duration of the tax abatement, I think we need to clean that up so that actually states a fixed period of time, whether it's 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. The way it's written right now, it says maximum duration allowed by law. Well, if the state revises it and decides to increase that to 10 years or 15 years or in perpetuity, that rebate goes on forever. So I think we need to, first of all, we need to figure out whether we want to do 3, 4, or 5 years or something along those lines, and then put a fixed period of time in there.
Counselor Pendleton.
Thank you. Also, I don't see a form for our town. One has not been generated yet. And with the year issue, I know that our vehicles, there's a form that's sent out by the assessors on some vehicles to folks, be it a farm vehicle or tractor, whatever they may have on a yearly basis. So I'd like to see our draft form, and then maybe that can clarify the year issue, so they can fill out the form on a yearly basis, so we know they're still in operation for that year. So that may address that yearly thing. And I'd just like to clarify or follow through with Councilor King's comments. Case in point, there's some folks that have purchased homes that are not their residence, but is a physical residential home, not, that is now a daycare and has been for many, many years. So, and they're not a corporate, they're not a franchise, they're a private entity, a private business. They pay or they file with the town as such business. So they are in a residential facility, a residential structure, I should say, not a commercial structure, but a residential structure. They became, I guess, commercial because they are a business entity. So clarification on the definitions would be extremely helpful. I don't see them on this list. I could be wrong. Could be wrong. They may be on this list. So, you know, that may be something that we need to look at in the clarification of the definitions and what we have. And then see a form, a town form. You know, you have examples here of Ellington and Coventry, but if we could get a better form, and they'd have to do it on a yearly basis and write that into this here. Now, is this going to become an ordinance? What is this going to become, a policy? And what is this?
It's just a resolution. It's a resolution of the town
Okay.
adopting this tax abatement structure, and it'd be
Okay.
implemented by the tax assessor.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Counselor Balboni.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not a lawyer by any means, and I don't even pretend to be. But I think to Councilor Baganski's point, how that could read is that a maximum duration of 5 years or the maximum allowed by law. If the maximum allowed by law is less than 5 years, just to cover that. If the state somehow drops it to 3 years, we aren't still trying to carry on 5 years.
Counselor King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just as a point of clarification, gentlemen. So say, for example, and I'm not disagreeing with you. I just need to make sure I understand. So say, for example, a person has their business for 5 years, 10 years. We're saying that they would only receive the abatement, even though they filed everything else saying that they still have a child care, they're still doing the best that they can for kids, blah, 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 blah. But they would only be able to get that abatement for 3 years. Is that what we're saying?
No, I think what Councilor Balboni is trying to clarify is, I just want to see us put a physical stop in the language. Say, we're going to give you X number of years. In case the state decides to change, right now the state law says 5 years. The state could change it to whatever. And the way this is written now, we would just follow that forever. And Councilor Balboni is also saying that we put a little for lack of a better term, loophole, you know, in there. So right now, if we wrote it as 5 years and the state decided to back it off to 3 years, we would still be on the hook for.
So we're not, and again, I apologize, I just want to be clear so that when we do vote, or excuse me, when this is put together, so we're not penalizing that business for continuing to do their job regardless of what the state says.
Correct.
So if a business does have their thing for 10 years, we're going, as long as they're continuing to do it right, we're going to continue to give them that abatement?
Can I jump in
Okay.
here? The state statute only allows a maximum of
5
5
years.
years. So 10 years can't happen. It's just, right now, the way the state statute reads, it's up to us. We could say 1 year, we could say 2 years, we could say 3 years, but I think what they're saying is, right now, it's open-ended to, if they did extend it to 10 years, then without us even having to vote on it, it would just automatically go there. And I believe what Counselor Balboni was saying is maybe we put something in there unless it decreases the number of years.
Cool.
Is that correct?
No, I got it. Thank you.
And I also want to be clear, my support for this is for the 9, home daycare centers. If we open that up to, commercial buildings and operations, there's nothing stopping somebody that does have a lot of money in their pocket from opening up a 30,000 square foot facility, and now boom, they're given 50%, 5 years without us even deciding. These are 9 individuals that are giving up their home. They're only allowed up to 6 kids in their house. And I know my daughter's daycare center, the part-day program is over now. So, we're having a baby in a month, but we're gonna have to find a new place for our 3rd child. So it is a shortage. This is just a way to, say, yeah, we think it's great you're giving up your home. We understand the sacrifice, and hopefully it helps them, because it seems like it is needed.
Counselor Lewis?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think the intent of abatement is to encourage and support, but not to cover, it's for a period of time. It needs to end. Their business. They're going to operate their business, and they're, like any other business, they're going to survive and do well, or they're going to go out of business. But they can't stay in business on the back of us, because it's not like we're saying we're going to reduce services to you because you have an abatement. They're still going to get the full town services, which have a cost factor. So the idea to limit the abatement is to assist them along to get over a hump and to grow their business, but not to go forever. Right?
Counselor King?
Yeah, thank you. And I don't want to belabor the point. And just to be clear to our audience, I'm not saying I don't want to give this, and I appreciate the Deputy Mayor's point about home care. I get that. Trust me, I get it. My mom probably could have said for all 7 of us, I got a home and I care about them, give me the abatement. That's not the issue. The issue for me is just making sure that someone who may not want to do it in their home, that still wants to have that same entrepreneur, I still love kids, I still want to do it, I just don't want to do it in my house because I got a 19-year-old that I don't love as much that might do something in my house. I'm just saying, so that's my only point. I'm not discouraging this. I think it's a great idea for the reasons that I said. I just don't want to, unfortunately, penalize someone who has that same love and entrepreneur. And again, I don't want to belabor it. I just want to be clear that that's where I'm at with it. I like it. I love it. The 5 years, whatever the timetable is, I'm with that as well. I understand limiting the time. My only thing is I don't want to, because unless I'm truly missing the point, which is if South Windsor can be a place where not only we can open things up for home care, as our resident has said, but also for that young person that may have taken a South Windsor High School thing and said, Mom, Dad, can I do it in this house? And Mom and Dad says, no, you cannot. That they can say, well, if I can get some money from Uncle Bob and open my own, then they can also be an entrepreneur and get the same abatement, and they're not part of a franchise, they're just opening up Danielle's Home Care. That's where I'm at with it. I just want to make sure that that same person who may not own a home, but may want a business, they may rent a home. And renters aren't able to do this unless I'm incorrect. Renters can have a home care place? Yeah, they can't. So say, for example, I don't make enough to rent, but for some act of God, I have enough to buy a business, then they can still be a part of that quote-unquote American dream in South Windsor where they can have that business and still get the same level of an abatement. That's all. That's my only point. That's all. Thank you.
You're welcome. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Maniscalco, there is a process in which businesses can apply for abatements in town, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so I don't think anyone's being stripped of that right as a business owner. I think anybody has the ability to come to us. We've seen it on a number of occasions already this year. Those folks didn't approach me. These folks did, and it's something that I can put some weight behind. I don't know if we need to get a consensus for the town attorney as far as what we want to see on this resolution as far as percentages or number of years. That way we can have a better discussion about it when it is on the agenda. Is that something we should talk about now? I know we've done that in the past.
So far, I've got adding the ability of entrepreneurs under 12-81N to this resolution as well. Prepare a draft kind of application form that the tax assessor might use, and we'll work in conjunction with the tax assessor's office using those forms that you see from Coventry and Ellington, and then adding some sort of filing requirement for these businesses to submit an application to the tax assessor as part of this resolution, and then putting a time limit. I would just say 5 years at this point, because that's what the statute allows. Those are the changes that I would be making and bringing back to you.
We want to add something in it where someone has to be in business at least 1 year, because if we institute this, we don't want someone coming up and automatically, I want to be a licensed daycare right now because of this. And to me, this is an incentive. I mean, we want incentives, but I mean, I would think you want to have an established daycare for at least a year. Do we want to add something like that?
As long as the statute allows it.
Does it allow that?
The statute would allow that. I think, I don't know if there's a time period necessary for the licensure piece. Without looking into that a little bit more. You might already get that by nature of them being licensed by the state. I don't know how long they have to be in operation in order to be licensed by the state. So you might already get that just by the fact that they have to be a licensed provider. I can look into that though, and if we can put something in there in terms of.
Yeah, you know, if they could have just gotten their license, but it just, usually you have to be in business for a year to get something, but.
And I just want to be, did you say you were going to add the thing about daycare centers also being on here?
The N.
Yes. To Councilor King's point of having an entrepreneur that may not have a residential home that they're living in, but they're operating a child care center in some other.
Yeah, I'd like to get a consensus from the rest of the council, because that opens up a massive door for, again, somebody to open up a big center, and it's.
Up to you guys.
Okay. Counselor Fitzgerald, you haven't gone yet.
Yeah, I was just, the one thing is, I think we would have to see how they're licensed. Because, you know, obviously they're not gonna fall under this particular licensure. It would be a different type of a license, so we might wanna look and see, you know, how many we already have in town, you know, how much more is that gonna take out of the tax base, and figure out what the town would have to do to track that and, you know, verify that they have an actual license from the state to do the work.
In my opinion, that should be a completely separate resolution. I think they're wildly different operations. And again, Madam Mayor, I hope we can get a consensus here as far as what,
People are still wanting to speak, if that's all right.
yeah, of course.
Okay, Counselor Carey?
I had mentioned earlier, can we please put definitions in? Okay, thank you.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and that's what I was just going to say. I mean, Counselor Carey has made that comment, and I'm fine with that. And again, I'm not talking about someone who buys, and this is why I use that, because this is the only way I can think of it, a Burger King franchise, a Subway franchise, a Chick-fil-A franchise.
Hold on 1 second. We have to suspend the regular meeting.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
We are now going to suspend the regular town council meeting for our third public hearing. The public hearing is to receive citizen input on the plan and conservation development. Mrs. Senrith, if you please read the public notice.
To be published in the Journal-Inquirer, June 7, 2024, legal ad, Town of South Windsor. Notice is hereby given that the South Windsor Town Council has set Monday, June 17th at 8:45 p.m. in the council chambers of the South Windsor Town Hall, 1540 Sullivan Ave, South Windsor, Connecticut, as the time and place for a public hearing to receive citizen input on the plan of conservation development. Dated at South Windsor, Connecticut, this 4th day of June 2024, attested to by Catherine Senrith, Executive Assistant.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak to the council during this public hearing regarding the plan of conservation development? Is there anyone who'd like to come forward at this time? Oh, if you can hit the button on the bottom of the base. There you go. Thank you.
There we go. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. For the record, my name is Donald Poland. I'm with the firm of Goman York Property Advisors based at 111 Founders Plaza, East Hartford, Connecticut. I'm here tonight on behalf of a property owner, Down East LLC, which is a owner of 3 parcels of land within the DC zone in the south end of the community. In the draft 2004 Plan of Conservation and Development, the DC zone is recommended to remain as commercial, and that residential uses and mixed-use development are not envisioned for this area at this time. As the property owners at that location, we're a bit concerned about this recommendation. That property has a history, a commercial history, a zoning history of over 30 years. Through that period of time, the entire Buckland Hills area has developed into the regional commercial center that it is today, including the Buckland Hills Mall and Evergreen Walk. It has been a prime location for commercial development, but that parcel remains decades later undeveloped. And the fact is, it's not an ideal site for commercial development. That's why it hasn't developed. Overall, the Buckland Hills area is struggling. The mall in Manchester is suffering from high vacancies. It's in bankruptcy. As you're aware, Evergreen Walk has had its own struggles with high vacancy. I just had dinner at Burton's with a lovely vacant space right next door. And we believe that this parcel, or these parcels in the DC zone, have potential for future development if they were considered as part of the Buckland Gateway, the zoning that applies to Evergreen Walk itself, in that a mix of uses, primarily driven by residential, could make that site work. The POCD also talks about that site in the context of an opportunity of growing the grand list. And we believe that multifamily residential and also mixed-use commercial are a way of growing the grand list there. But more important, providing a critical mass of housing, households, disposable income, and population that would support the existing retail in places like Evergreen Walk would be an immense benefit to the community and help with growing the grand list overall. So I'm submitting a letter that was written for the Planning and Zoning Commission that will be submitted to the Planning and Zoning Commission on the 25th at their hearing. But I wanted it also here for the council to read and to be part of the record of this proceeding. I've also signed up behind me John Swaggerty, who is a representative of Down East LLC, and I believe will also be speaking to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and Town Council, for allowing me to speak this evening. My name is John Swaggerty. I represent Down East LLC. We are the owners of the parcels of land in question. These are the parcels of land behind the plaza at Bluckin Hills. The parcels are currently zoned DC zone, which is intended to support a large-scale commercial development. My employer is I represent Down East LLC. We are a subsidiary of Washington Prime Group. We are a company that owns about 70 similar large-scale power centers and enclosed shopping malls across the country. And from this operation, we have a unique perspective on the dynamics of shopping centers and malls, the retailers that lease them, and the shoppers that support them. I'm here because the POCD in question contemplates continuing the DC zone for this parcel. And I write to explain to you why I think that is not a viable zone for that property. This market already has a tremendous amount of retail uses. Everyone knows the mall, the power centers, the big boxes that are sort of in between and all around them, Evergreen Walk as the lifestyle center that complements them. And I think everyone is aware that there is a tremendous amount of vacancy there. This comes as a result of sort of changing dynamics in the retail market. There are much more online shopping, the shipping and returning that makes it so that people don't have to go to stores anymore. And this has led to a pretty significant decrease in demand for retail spaces, which is felt all across the country and can be seen just right here. With this kind of like big picture market trends, it means that you don't have a lot of retailers looking to open new stores that that this zone is intended to promote, especially when you have so much retail here already. And further, I would say that the parcel itself, while it is intended for a commercial zone, it doesn't have the right attributes that would make it into a viable commercial or retail zone. It doesn't have primary visibility or access from Buckland Road. It does not, or from Pleasant Valley Road. It does not have the visibility, doesn't have the access. It has neighbors that are residents, which many retailers don't want to locate around them because they know that's just not an easy thing for them to live with, complaints and entitlement issues, et cetera. What I would encourage instead is a consideration for a new zone for this parcel, the Buckland Periphery, we call it, something that could look like the Evergreen Walk Master Plan, a master plan zone that would require high design, a level of review by the Planning Commission, the PZC, and a mix of uses. A mix of uses could include multifamily residential uses, whether those are age-restricted or market rate rentals. We would not be looking for single-family homes of any sort, but providing residents is sort of the basis for a mixed-use project. Small commercial uses could support them, but what you really get out of that is open space, parkland that's a complement to the residents, but a benefit to the entire community, and you also gain customers. Customers that could support places like Evergreen Walk, which is a really fantastic project, a really exciting place. I think it's something that the entire town is very proud of, but it needs people to support it. And something similar to the master plan at Evergreen Walk, if we were to replicate that at our parcel, I think you would be pleased with the results of design, outdoor space, mix of uses, and residents that would support these uses in a way that would not generate issues that would cause concern. Minimal school children, minimal strain on city services. That's all that I'd like to say. And I think I give you this.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward to speak in regards to the plan and conservation and development? Mr. Kozakowski.
Good evening, Mayor and Deputy Mayor and the Town Council. My name is Mark Kozakowski. I'm at 863 Clark Street. I'm speaking kind of wearing two hats, one as a resident and former Town Council and Board of Education member, and second as a certified planner, having practiced land use planning and zoning and development for approaching 20 years on a regional and municipal level. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on the POCD. And I just want to speak my general support for the plan. I think it looks and feels like a typical growing suburban community POCD. It hits all the right points. It talks about sustainability and resiliency, talks about housing and open space, transportation, making the community more bikeable and walkable. It hits everything, and it provides all the ways and tools necessary to facilitate those things. None of the ideas are all that innovative, but they draw upon best practices in land use development. That said, I guess there's two things that I think are missing in this plan that should be addressed. First, there's a lack of, I don't know the right format for it, or an inventory, or even a mention of various community resources that we have, both private resources and public resources. For example, there's no mention of the fairgrounds or the pavilions at Nevers Park. There's no real mention of the shops at Evergreen Walk, where we have our summer concert series. It's a great community event. And no mention really of our dozens of athletic fields and athletic courts. And these are all things that are part of South Windsor that make South Windsor great now. And I would think that we want to keep that as part of our 10-year plan. South Windsor keeping it great for 10 years in the future. So I think that's something that we should consider adding, just at least inventorying these things. And then second part, it's a little tougher. When you look at the plan really close up, like I said, it hits all the right things and strategies of how to address them. But if you step really far back, there's a sense of a lack of actual vision of what South Windsor should look like in the next 10 years. When it gets to that section in the plan, it begins with the mission or the vision that was put into the strategic plan that the council adopted last year, and which had all the right buzzwords, talking about a thriving community, great quality of life. I have it on my phone, but it talks about all those great things, and it should. And what that strategic plan was and kind of was intended to do was to kind of be a veiled spending plan for the council, looking at where to allocate its resources, building sidewalks, protecting open spaces, providing services for senior citizens and all those things. And then, which was great for that, but it was used for this plan as the same vision statement, and then it just goes into growth management strategies. So, and which is good. I think growth management is something that we need to do. We've kind of had a stressful few years dealing with the Planning and Zoning Commission and different types of developments that have really torn some of our neighborhoods apart, brought some of our neighborhoods together, and it really was very stressful, and it really forced South Windsor and us to look at what we want our community to look like. And I was really hoping that would be part of this plan, this overall vision. So, and with this plan, I can't tell what we're going to look like in 10 years. Are we going to continue to keep growing in a way that makes us look? I hate to use other examples of other towns, but are we going to grow with like a Glastonbury, where there have been very developed over the last 15 years, or are we going to be a little bit more preservationist, grow in a way something like Farmington, where they're very strategic with what they're allowing to build there, or something like that, or are we going to look like something else? And I can't see that in the text of the plan as we see it here. What I see in this plan as a growth management strategy is to do a few different things. Let me just make sure I'm hitting everything. So there's a lot of goals and strategies written in the plan, and I think they're all right, and it has a lot of objectives, and it assigns different bodies of who would be the lead to address them. And looking at the plan, a lot of the assignments were to either the council or city departments to making sure that they're doing plans, that they're being considered and built. And whenever it's a town council, or especially when it's the Public Works or any other town department, it's really the town council, because you approve whatever projects, if not only for the spending side, what gets built. So that puts a lot of power and responsibility on this council to effectuate the plan of conservation and development. I can have mixed feelings about this, because the purpose of the POCD is to drive land use policies, which is the guiding document for the Planning and Zoning Commission. In that, the Planning and Zoning Commission, with the POCD, is to initiate new policies, initiatives, and zoning regulation changes to effectuate the plan. And looking at those responsibilities, they are only it either says maintain, keep doing it, or very minor refinements. And I would expect more out of a POCD with respect to that. I'd like to see more visioning. It talks a lot about open space and how to preserve open space. Again, relies on responsibility of the council to fund it, but that's fine, because that's kind of how you do it. But I'd like to see a more powerful vision statement, something along the lines of preserving open spaces for the need of both passive and recreational activities, and protecting our natural resources. That tells us why we're preserving open spaces, not just how we do it. When we're talking about housing development has been very divisive in our town over the past few years, and that's the reality of it. So maybe in light of that, seeing a vision statement, something like being strategic in developing housing opportunities that both meet the needs of the community in the wake of a decade of growing school enrollment. That's challenges that we have to do, and it's taking on what the problems are face on and finding a way to address them over the next 10 years. And then when it comes to commercial development, we've seen a lot of issues with commercial development close to neighborhoods, and they cost both the town lots of time and money and the efforts of the commission and the public and applicants, and it was a lot. I think many of you can agree with me. But let's see a vision where it says, like, facilitate and incentivize development that fits into the context of a community that promotes responsible development. Something it's general, but it narrows down. So whenever we have to make specific decisions on a certain topic, it can relate to a grander vision, not just we're looking at growth management. So I think we can be bigger and open our eyes a little more and be a little bit more explicit on addressing the problems that we've faced and that we will face moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward to talk about the plan of conservation development?
The common one.
Did you sign in already?
Yeah, I signed in both, but I think this point is more relevant. I have two more.
Can you speak close to the mic so we can hear you, please?
Yeah. I signed up for both the on-agenda and off-agenda list. I have 3 points to say, but I think this point is more relevant to.
This is for the plan and conservation
plan and
development. Okay.
I do have 2 other points. I can come back later or go.
Well, this is a public hearing for the plan of conservation and development. This is the only thing we're hearing right now.
I really want to bring forward a perspective. I'm a new resident in the town, living in from 2021. There are a lot of things which attracted me towards this town, and unfortunately, many are failing. So I'll tell you what it is first. There's a clear lack of future focus in any town planning which is going on here. I feel it that way. I request the town council to look at using human-centered design principles. It may be very academic type of wording, but all it means is all the projects you are doing for the citizens, mainly infrastructure projects, they deliver towards the citizens' needs, meaning mandate the town engineering, planning, zoning, and architecture committee to adopt human-centered design. The architects who spoke before me, they can help you with that. Or ask for citizens. You have very well-educated people living in your town. They can help you. Human-centered design puts needs and experiences of people at the forefront of the process. It's all about empathy, collaboration, iterative design, and mainly user involvement, like resident involvement at its core. So I think it's reasonable to say, like, over the past couple of years, the projects which went through a truck fueling station without an access road, trying to build a mega warehouse next to a residence, planning to reroute a highway traffic towards an elementary school. And these things can be avoided. These are not new. Every town before us have done it. There are towns which did it better, they failed. Some have failed and some have not. This town still has an opportunity to correct its course. Avoid becoming a polluted, accident-prone, drive-through wasteland filled with depleted warehouses. It's bleak when I say that, right? It is. Please stop. The town council must take responsibility. Use this moment now. Set the town, equip the town so that it can deliver upward mobility, better education, health, safety and healthy environment. And these are basic things which people need. I have 2 more points. I'll come back to it. It's more relevant to that traffic through Governor's Road, which is called a highway, which shouldn't be. Thank you.
Thank you. And you did sign in that sign-in sheet, right? All right, I just want to make sure. Thank you.
I have other one.
Okay, thank you. Is anyone else that would like to come forward to speak on the planning, conservation, and development? Mr. Gresh.
Hi, everybody. A couple of things. So, I was watching this as it kind of went through from survey process all the way to where it is now as a draft. And if you look basically in 1-2, where you have the results of what the community wanted, the number one thing up there is preserving undeveloped land for open space. The least concern was increasing business development. The second least concern,
Could you say what page that you're talking on?
it has this 1-2 on it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So the second least is providing more housing options. And then if you go back into what this plan has into it, and I'm sure I could sit here and do this for hours, I just don't have that kind of time. But if you look at housing, A1, encourage and incentivize the creation of smaller housing units. A2, encourage multifamily or mixed-use development in or within walking distance to business district. So it's like this entire plan, and I can go through this plan again, but we don't have that kind of time. It doesn't reflect the survey that went out to the community. It's not what the community wants. The other thing is there's no transition zones between residential and industrial. Our neighborhoods are feeling it now. We're seeing it day by day. Wetlands are disappearing for one reason or another. Like I said, I just saw this for the first time tonight. It's the only comments I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who'd like to come forward to speak on the plan and conservation and development? Going once, going twice, seeing none. I'm going to close the public hearing at this time, and we'll take a straw poll. The straw poll is not scientific. For those that are in favor of the plan and conservation development, please raise your hand who are in favor. And those against? So I thought. Okay, and we will resume our regular meeting at this time. Councilor Carey, did you have something you wanted to?
I thought we were still on the childcare.
Okay. Oh. Okay, we'll get moving on. Okay, Councilor King.
Yes, thank you, councilors. The only point, and I'm not going to belabor it, is just to be, and I think the definitions will suffice. My intent, by no stretch of the imagination, is to necessarily, quote unquote, make the rich richer. That's not my point. My point is to help those individuals as well as the ones that we're speaking of. I just don't want something that we are putting our best foot forward on, which again I agree with 100%, to leave anyone behind. Because sometimes we enact things that do exactly that have the best of intention. And so again, as I started to say earlier, in using the examples of a Burger King franchise, a Subway franchise, a Chick-fil-A franchise, I'm not looking to give them additional help or abatements in any way that we don't already do, perhaps, or not do as a town council. But what I am saying is that, and this may help in regards to the definition, not only for those quote-unquote home cares, which are defined, it looks as, by the state, but also we have an opportunity to encourage those, and I think Madam Mayor made an excellent point. They have to be in business for a year. They have to show that they are an independent facility and that they mean what they say. It just may not be at their home. And that's all I'm saying. Again, I'm not against what we're looking to do here. I'm just, if we're able to do it, I would like to just not leave anybody behind that has the same level of intent as someone who is taking care of children out of their own home residence. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Balboni?
I think there's a pretty simple solution to that, as to what Councilor King is talking about. If the home daycares are allowed 6 kids, then if we want to include the commercials, they're allowed 6 kids. Any more than 6 kids doesn't get the abatement.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I'll go back to what I said before. I do believe that's a completely separate resolution. Anyone who has a business or plans to open up a business in town can go through that process of applying for an abatement. I would not want to see even having something on there. I just don't think there's any reason to. These are folks, again, it's a great point, they're limited to how many kids they can have. You know, somebody can open up a big old building, have as many kids as they want in there, and then now they're given a, 50% abatement for 5 years. I think that's unfair to the folks that we're creating this resolution for. They may be in they may be renting where their landlord takes care of the parking lot and the sidewalks and restriping the spots for the cars to park, where the young lady here in the crowd, if her driveway needs to be replowed, she's paying for it. Nobody's taking care of those things for them. So I wouldn't want to see that on the resolution. I like the way it's drafted, minus a couple of things that we wanted to add, to really clearly define, 5 years and what we talked about. I don't need to repeat what we talked about, but I do not think that we should be wrapping any other business types besides the ones that we're speaking about today.
My question is, do we want to have them use the maximum 5 years? Do we want to do it shorter? Do we want,
Yeah, I think, I know we've had a couple of resolutions like this in the past where we've just done a consensus and we've come up with a number.
Because the maximum is 5 years, so do we want to do 5 years? Do we want to get a consensus on 5? Do we want to get a consensus on 4 or 3?
I think we start with 5.
Councilor Pendleton?
I think we need more information from our town attorney as far as definitions go, and you're raising your eyebrows at me, and to figure out a better resolution with more detailed information, to have the form attached. I think we need to have more information given to us before
deciding how many years?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I'm going to make this statement, shoot me now, Deputy Mayor, but I know you want to do the right thing. I'm not saying we're going to do the wrong thing. I'm just saying I don't want to rush this. It's a great thing. Let's just make sure that it's done correctly so we don't have to come back and revisit it and do everything else. So let's make sure we have all our ducks in the row, all the information that we need, write up the resolution correctly with clear definitions. What does the state say? How do we deal with that? Let's do it on a yearly basis. Of course, they'd have to fill out a form to know if the business is even in business, So we need all of that and get all our ducks in a row. So maybe for the next meeting that we can have it on as a discussion item with the new resolution with the definitions, be it, and maybe a form for the town that our town assessor, Mary Huda, can draw up for us and gather, and then we can have discussion and resolution on that at the next meeting.
Yeah, because we have samples of the other forms from the other towns too, so.
Yeah, right. Mary can draw up something, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With all due respect, Councilor Pendleton, we've had many, many months to, do the research on this, and we've been given plenty of information. We have a form from the town of Ellington to look at and review. We've had this
But we haven't discussed the
No, I
forms as a
understand.
council.
And I know I personally asked for us not to rush such things like the Charter Commission, and it got rushed through and passed over, and I disagreed with that. I'm not saying to vote on this tonight. It's simply, I believe we could have done our homework, and we have had the information in front of us, and it's disappointing that we need to have our,
But we have to add things into,
and that's what we're talking about. We've told him the things we need to add.
right, but we have to see it in a clean form before we can,
Correct. And that's
and
That's
we'll
what
get
we've
that.
been
at the
talking
next-
about for
And we'll,
the last 25, 30 minutes about this. So I'm not asking for us to vote on this tonight, but I'm asking for us to come up with the numbers that we'd like him to put on the draft resolution. That way, the next time we see it, hopefully it's clean and concise and we can move it forward. But what additional information are you hoping to see? To me, this all seems quite clear.
Questions about the 3-year, 5-year, questions about the definitions, questions about what businesses are going to be able to apply for this, and if there's any more that, because I thought of one that was a residential that is a daycare, and I don't know if that qualifies for this. I mean, we need more information from our town to move forward with this. And all I'm saying is let's just make sure that we do it correctly and wait for our town attorney to give us the information and our town manager to give us the information, because we can't make a decision based off of a resolution that I don't even know who drafted. And did you draft this? You did? Okay. So we need more information, I guess, in definitions and everything else that the rest of us have asked for, and then we can move forward with making a decision with a clear cut.
have a clean discussion at the next meeting.
This is really a draft. Yeah, and no, we've never seen a draft before. This is our first draft, correct?
Well, we saw a draft from the other towns, our last time
We didn't
spoke
see a
about it.
draft for our town.
Correct.
I don't care what other towns
And-
do. This is our town.
And now we are, and to me, it seems quite clear. And
Well,
we have,
I would think, let's have a clean draft at the next meeting, a discussion, and have a resolution on the 15th. Counselor Carey.
I mean, also keep in mind that because this is tax abatement, all the other towns have said that once the person makes application, it would be for the next grand list. So our next grand list, I think, comes out October 1st, 2024. So we do have time, because that grand list is then taxed in the fiscal year 25, 26. So, I mean, with the smoking ordinance, you could put it in tomorrow. With this, we're going to have to tie it to the grand list and tie it to the tax year. So I think we, probably not the same urgency, not that we're not working on it, but, we do have time.
Counselor Lewis?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree that there's no rush and urgency to push it through so fast. There is an urgency to keep moving forward, and we need the definition. There's been calls for how are things defined, what are the numbers. Personally, I'd like some more discussion. I'd like more 3 years and 5 years, and we need to work that out. What I really like tonight that I've seen is we've been working as a council and talking about things. I really like some of your input on the smoking ordinance, Councilor Pendleton, and thank you for being a smoker and still sharing what you did. That's great cooperation as a council, and I think that we need to do it correctly. We need to move forward, and we'll just wait for the town attorney to get to us this information. And hopefully when we get it, we'll read it, we'll edit it, and we'll come in, we'll make suggestions, and do another revision until we have a final draft that says, bingo, this is it. So I agree with let's do it right once. Thank you.
Thank you. You're all set, Deputy Mayor?
Yeah. By no means, I'm not asking to rush this. I just am wondering what definitions are needed to be more clear. I mean, it's a home child daycare center. Someone's living in their home. It's a daycare center.
Right, but Counselor Pendleton was questioning the house that's a home, but there's no homeowner living there because it.
Yeah, it has to be their residence. It's somebody
Right, but
who's,
we just need clarification. So We can have the clarification at the next meeting, everything all cleared out, and then
Sure.
maybe the 15th, we can have a resolution, or if we have to continue the discussion, we can do that, and because the grand list doesn't come out until October 1st. Okay? Are we all good? All right, thank you. Moving on. 13A, new business. Chief Lindstrom regarding the OSTA update Governor's Highway area.
Good evening, Mayor Delnicki, Deputy Mayor Syracuse, the rest of the council, thank you for having me. As everyone is aware, there's been a lot of discussion about Governor's Highway and Belden Road and persistent complaints from the community about truck traffic in the area. And I just want to, before I begin, I just want to give some background information, some brief historical context. My appearance here tonight is on the heels of a petition that was circulated, submitted to the clerk's office on February 20th of this year. And then in that petition, among other things, the petition requested that the local traffic authority, and that's me, request OSTA to designate a segment of Governor's Highway and Belden Road to be prohibited for through trucks. On 2 days later, on February 22nd, I submitted that request to OSTA via email, and then they put it on their timeline and they did their thing. OSTA conducted both a traffic study and an engineering study and then submitted their report to me. I forget the exact date, I don't have it with me, but their report to me came back probably in the 3rd week of May, maybe the 4th week of May. It wasn't too long ago. I presented that report to the manager, and his suggestion was that I come back and present that to you folks, so here we are. There's been a lot of conversation tonight. Some people have seen the report, some people have not seen the report, but in essence, 3 quick findings from OSTA that are pertinent to the conversation is they, after their traffic study and engineering study, they determined that, and I quote, Governor's Highway and Belden Road do not meet the criteria to be considered for a through truck prohibition. They also, in that report, indicated that OSTA's approval for a speed limit in that area is 30 miles an hour, despite the fact that our signs say that it's 25 miles an hour. So they directed the town to remove the 25 mile an hour speed limit signs and replace them with 30 mile an hour speed limit signs. When I saw that, I got right on the phone with them and I said, wait a second. You know, I like my job, I like the town where I work, and if I go forward and tell people that, then it's going to be a way different kind of conversation. They were very quick to assure me that there's a procedure we can go through as a municipality that I can initiate as the LTA to petition them essentially to change that or allow us to keep that speed limit at 25. This is not something that's unique to that area. OSTA came through and they periodically look at speed limits. There are a couple of, my understanding is there are a couple members of OSTA or people whose jobs and occupations are on the periphery of OSTA who live locally, and they will on occasion notice certain things and then it will trickle to my desk. So for instance, we had to revisit the speed limits on Nevers Road within the last 18 months or so and change sections of that. We had to revisit some of our school zones and change some of those things to make them current with what OSTA is asking for. So the speed limit issue I consider to be kind of a non-issue. I think I'm confident that we can pursue that. I can initiate that. I have not yet asked the town to remove the signs. I haven't asked Public Works to take down the 25s and put up 30s. I'm confident and comfortable in the fact that we can pursue that to keep them at 25. In that report, though, that OSTA submitted, they also directed the town to remove the tractor trailer prohibited town ordinance 172 signs as they conflict with state statute. There has been a lot of discussion, not just tonight, previous meetings, conversations that happen when I'm standing in line at Dunkin' Donuts, to phone calls I have in my office. People will often bring up this, well, in 1986, we were told. Well, in 1986, I was 10 years old. I have no idea who said what, to whom. I don't even know who the chief was. I'm guessing it was Tyler. Maybe it was Chief Ryan. I don't know, I'm guessing Matt Galligan was the manager, but I don't know. I don't know what was said. I do know that that ordinance is unenforceable. It conflicts with 14298. So OSTA directed us to take those down. When I was on the phone with them going over the report, they said, oh, by the way, take them down on Troy Road also. So that's where we stand. I'm not here to debate the legality of the ordinance. I'm just telling you what OSTA said and that it's in direct conflict with 14298. So that's really the high points of what they found. So where does that leave us with trucks? OSTA says that we can't make it a through truck prohibition. And when you look at other things like weight class restrictions, OSTA's website is very, very clear on weight class restrictions. I think, and I called them about that too, just to get clarification before I present it to you. I think that the mentioning of the weight class restrictions as an option in that report was more of mentioning of it as an educational, like, hey, this is what the town can exercise dominion over. This is what the state can exercise dominion over. I don't think it was meant as a suggestion, hey, let's do this. My understanding with weight class restrictions is that they are better supported by complaints of roadway integrity, engineering design, things like that, where we say, hey, listen, that bridge is weak. It can't take an 80,000-pound truck. Now, I don't know what the construct of Governor's Highway is. I do know that it's set to be reconstructed, and we'll get to that. But OSTA's website on weight class restrictions is very, very clear. And they say that a town or city may not enact any ordinances precluding trucks from local roads if they become, excuse me, if they become de facto through truck prohibitions. And I fear that if the council moves forward and pursues weight class restrictions, that's exactly what they're doing. Is you ask for the through truck prohibition, OSTA says, nope, it doesn't fit the criteria, and then they say, okay, well then we'll just do a weight class restriction. That's not what OSTA's intent is with weight class restrictions. I think it would be very clearly, especially with the publicly documented conversations, all the different documents, the report, it would be very clear that it would be the town's attempt to, in essence, do something that would be a de facto de facto through truck prohibition. The simple fact of the matter is that the section of Governor's Highway in Belden that we're talking about from Route 30 is the shortest and least impactful access to that industrial zone, right into the middle of it. When you look at the numbers from 470 Governor's Highway, which is commercial storefront, it's kind of the most easterly commercial site. From there to Ellington Road on Governor's Highway is 0.65 miles, and that impacts 34 residences. If you go from 470 Governor's Highway to Ellington Road via Belden, it's 200 feet longer, and it impacts approximately 29 residences. So then when you look at, and I was saying to Councilor Carey before the meeting, you know, we have to, I think everyone has to understand and acknowledge that these trucks, A, have a right to conduct business in town, and I don't, and no police officer has the authority to say, you can't go there because you're a truck. All right, you drift towards interrupting interstate commerce, I'm not getting involved with that. That's a big no-no. You drift towards subjectively treating different neighborhoods differently, and I think that's a bad recipe. Let's say for argument's sake, and I don't know the actual numbers, but let's say for argument's sake there are 1,000 trucks a week that have to get to, I'm making it up just for simple numbers. Let's say there's 1,000 trucks a week that have to get into that industrial zone. And if we put a cul-de-sac, a bridge, a moat, whatever it is, so that those trucks can't go through, or a through truck prohibition or a weight class restriction, if we make it so those 1,000 trucks can't get to where they need to go, guess what? Those 1,000 trucks don't go, they don't go away, they go somewhere else in town. So if you're looking at Route 30 as the access point, let's continue southwest on Route 30. The next stop to get in there is gonna be Pleasant Valley Road. So to use Governor's Highway from Ellington Road is 3,464 feet with 34 residences involved. If you go to Pleasant Valley Road and go from Pleasant Valley where 7-Eleven is and go to Jeffrey Drive, you're almost 1,000 feet further You're 4,307 feet with almost 50 residences impacted. And if you go, that was if you go southwest on 30. If you go northeast on 30, the next way to get through there is Foster Road, which is the curvy little back road, and people get it confused all the time with Foster Street. They don't understand why there's that, and then we throw in there that there's Foster Street Extension, and smoke starts coming out their ears. But from Ellington Road to Strong Road, I'm sorry, from Ellington to 388 Strong, which is the most eastward commercial location on Strong, is almost 2 miles, 10,500 feet. And there are 77 residences impacted. So I know the vast majority of the people sitting behind me don't want to hear that 30 governors to Nutmeg North, or to 70 governors, is the shortest, most direct, and least impactful way into that industrial zone. Simple fact of the matter is I think that it is, and that's aren't numbers I'm making up. I measured them and I counted houses, and that's where we stand. Those trucks have to go somewhere. We have to allow them to go somewhere. I cannot make them go somewhere else, and that's how we look at it. One of the other points that came up in the OSTA report, and something that I addressed prior to making the request to OSTA, was, we hear claims about, oh, it's so dangerous. There's so many trucks going so fast. It's so dangerous. In the last 3 years, in this affected area on Belden and Governors, South Windsor Police Department has a record of 2 crashes that occurred. Only one of them involved a tractor-trailer unit or a commercial truck. The others were 2 private, personally owned cars. The one that involved the tractor-trailer unit, I read the report today. Actually, the tractor-trailer driver stated it was a slow-speed backing accident. And the tractor-trailer driver said that he was going east on Governor's Highway, so from Route 5 towards Ellington Road, saw the signs that shouldn't be there that say town ordinance, no trucks allowed, stopped, tried to back up to extract himself from what he perceived to be a potentially unlawful passage through there, and he backed into the pickup truck or the vehicle that was behind him. Low speed, scratched bumper, no injuries, nothing. That's the only commercial truck incident we've had that was an accident. Now, people say, oh, we don't want there to be an accident. I don't want there to be an accident either, but we have to make data-driven decisions. And a crash history is something that OSTA, the state, we always look at. And there's been 2, one involving a commercial motor vehicle. That's in the last 3 years. The other thing that I would ask the council to be mindful of is that this is, from a roadway standpoint, the impacted area is about 6 1,000ths of the town's roadways. It's a very, very, very small section of the town's roadways. But like I said before, I as a police officer, I as the chief, I can't tell trucks where to go. Why do they come up Ellington Road instead of using Route 5? I don't know. Maybe they want to go past 7-Eleven, run and get a coffee. Maybe they don't like going past the arena. Maybe they don't want to deal with railroad traffic, not overnight, but during the day. I don't know what the reason is, but also the fact of the matter is I can't stop them and ask them. So my suggestions, and I know we've been here a long time tonight, my suggestions for the town would be, first and foremost, initiate the process, for me to initiate the process with OSTA to retain a speed limit of 25 on the affected areas of Governors and Belden. I do think we should remove the local ordinance signs in that area because they conflict with statute. I think that it should be open for discussion. I will offer to, with the manager's partnership or planning and zoning or engineering, I don't mind drafting a letter and trying to get it to all the businesses on Governor's Highway, Nutmeg North, Nutmeg South, South Satellite, and Talbot Lane, asking them to have their drivers and vendors utilize Route 5. Ask them to utilize Sullivan Avenue. And that's similar to what we did with Home Depot and Coca-Cola when those trucks, we've had truck issues on Chapel Road, Long Hill Road, and now the driving one has been Governor's Highway and Belden. But I think we can ask them. It worked with Home Depot, it worked with Coca-Cola, ask them to use other routes. But the simple fact of the matter is when their wheels are spinning, they're making money. If their wheels spin too much, they're losing money. and they're gonna do their thing, and I can't regulate that. So I don't mind drafting a letter and getting it out to the businesses in that community. I think that from a town engineering and local, we should have town engineering and the local road safety group assess and modify the roadway design and engineering now where they can, but also in the future. We run into it, I had a conversation earlier about Beelzebub. We're doing it now with Pleasant Valley. We've seen it on Kelly Road, that when we reconstruct these roads, what do? We make them flatter, straighter, wider, and smoother. What does that lend itself to? Speed issues, right? And that's, the traffic complaints are by far and away the #1 complaint we get as an agency. Beelzebub, Clark Street, Governor's Highway, you name it and it's there. Oakland, Felt, Foster Street. That's what we get, and that's why we're constantly putting out speed signs, speed trailers, you name it, and we're trying to address it. But I do think there are some things that can be done from a design standpoint, or at least questions that can be asked from a design standpoint to make sure that if we're gonna spend the money and reinvest in Governor's Highway in the next year, let's do so in a way that maybe we can kind of persuade trucks to go another way. The last thing I have that I think is my suggestion as the LTA to the town is don't interfere with interstate commerce and make sure we stay in compliance with the MUTCD, which is our Bible on this stuff. It's the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. They're the ones who, the MUTCD says, you know, your sign has to be this big, it has to be in this location, it has to be these colors. And I think if we deviate from MUTCD, then we're making, it can be perceived that we're making subjective decisions about these neighborhoods, and then we're up the creek without a paddle, because why did we address this neighborhood at this standard and this neighborhood at this standard? We can avoid that by just sticking to the national standard, and I think the town attorney would agree, and I don't know the inner workings of it, but I do know that when you start to dabble with or take on the appearance of restricting or interfering with interstate commerce, that's a situation that we don't want to tip our toes into. So those are my, that's my feedback. I know, Mayor Delnicki, you have some questions I think that you were going to ask me. I suspect the rest of you may have them, so I'm happy to answer them as best I can.
Well, with your report and your findings, you kind of blew a lot of my questions out of the water, so. But the one question, because on Belden, there's a gentleman, his property gets driven on, and they get that guardrail that gets hit. And then you got people traveling south on Ellington, the truck drivers, turning right onto Governor's Highway, and they're in the other lane. Is that a ticketable offense? Is that something you guys can do when you're doing traffic enforcement?
At face value, no. Despite the fact that it looks like and smells like it's going to be an improper turn, there's statutory language that says unless the movement can be made with reasonable safety. So the truck is safe in doing that, and they all have it, right? This truck makes wide right turns. They all make what would strictly by the early letters of the law in that statute, they all make illegal turns. They have to be able to fit. Even at an intersection as big as Four Corners, they're going to swing out into the other lane. They're going to extend out. They're not going to, I forget what it's called. It's not the critical point of the intersection, but they're all going out into that further lane. Those are all illegal turns unless they can be done safely. And there's statutory language that says unless such movement can be made with reasonable safety, then they're good to go. So there are accommodations in the statutory language that allow these vehicles to make it down these roads. Same thing with your school buses. If we're going to ticket an R&L freight carrier or a FedEx truck, then we're going to have to ticket school buses too. We have to be uniform when we apply the law. So that caveat is in there for those large vehicles.
Okay. The city of Hartford has large traffic humps. They have it on Murphy Road.
Yep.
I wrote it today. And actually, some of the towns have where they make it like a serpentine in their road to help slow down truck traffic. But the humps, they can be done.
They can be built, but if we're going to stick to the MUTCD guidelines, speed humps are not intended to curtail truck traffic.
Well, I'm not saying to curtail, but it'll help slow them down. But we can do that, correct?
Put in speed humps?
Yeah. Because it'll have to slow, because I know they go faster than 25 miles an hour on that road.
Could you do it? Probably. But I'm also going to then, as we did the same thing on Laurel Street, not to wake any demons, but we addressed it on Laurel Street. So now you're gonna roll an 80,000-pound truck over, an empty truck over a speed hump. The next complaints we're gonna get are noise complaints, and they're rattling. It doesn't stop the rattling. And then they're gonna accelerate, so now you have this truck back under power, getting back up to speed until it gets to the next speed hump. And it's all, that's what we have to be careful of, is doing things that deviate from the engineered reason. To have speed humps, the trucks aren't speeding. We sat down there for a month and wrote tickets. And the trucks aren't speeding. They may look like they're speeding because they're big. They may sound like they're speeding because they're loud, but they're not speeding. They're big and heavy. Now, I know these people behind me are gonna disagree. And they're gonna say, well, on this night, at this time, at 5 o'clock, okay. The same thing on Sullivan Avenue, same thing on you name it, USA. There are gonna be exceptions to the rule, but when we sit down there for a month and give out tickets, we're giving them out to non-commercial vehicles, passenger vehicles.
The
So-
neighborhood people, yes.
Say it again?
The neighborhood people.
Yeah, usually.
Because I get it on Felt Road too.
Yeah,
They're all,
they don't wanna hear it, but unfortunately, that's what it is. So I think that to put speed humps in there as an end around to curtailing truck traffic is not advisable. That's not what MUTCD says they're for. Sounds like we're dealing with two different issues, right? We're dealing with a truck issue, and then we'll tag on to that speeding cars issue. Those are two different issues that have to be addressed separately.
all right, one of my other ones, I'm not sure if it'll, probably won't be a regulation, is can we dead-end Governor's Highway?
You can, but then be ready for these people to be mad because it takes them 20 minutes to get to the Pride gas station to get a gallon of milk. All right.
Dead-end it
You can
at-
dead end it on both ends if you want. It could just be a little island in and
and
of
have a
itself.
lane for emergency vehicles.
Sure. I'm not worried about our access to it, our response times, you know.
Well, if you're coming from Ellington Road and you need to get to the, just like where Carlos Pasta is,
Mhm.
that'll be on the other side of the dead end. So that faster for the fire department would be,
I can't speak to the fire department's response protocols. They're coming from a station. Our folks are out there. So there's no guarantee that ours are going to be on Ellington Road, when in fact, 9 times out of 10, there's going to be an officer on Route 5. So you can build a cul-de-sac. I don't see a reason why you can't. As for emergency access, I'm not really worried about it. And I know, like I said, I know that the crowd behind me says, yeah, build the cul-de-sac, because they're not worried. Then you got to talk to the schools, right? Make sure that the school bus stops, all that are going to be impacted. But if the town decides they want to really dramatically change the engineering, the design of that road, I'm not the one to stop that. I do think that there will be some complaints from in here to support their argument. There won't be, but when push comes to shove and the roadway design starts to take shape, I think there will be complaints from people about accessing, you know, oh, I coach at the arena and now it takes me twice as long to get to the arena. Maybe I'm wrong, and I'm wrong a lot, but in discussing it with the command staff today, I think that's what's going to happen.
okay, well, that's a good one to have in the toolbox right now.
You know, the other thing too that you had referenced in your email was, to use your words, that you're not, what'd you say?
I know I said a lot in it, so.
Yeah, we need to use the tools that we have in our toolbox, and that we shouldn't be placating OSTA. Well, we're the ones who invited OSTA into the equation. OSTA was minding their own business, and then we went to them and said, hey, can you look at this? So we're not placating them. They're doing exactly what we asked them to do. We just don't like the answer. And as for taking away tools in our toolbox, some of these tools were never in our toolbox, right? A through truck prohibition, they're not taking that away. That's just something that, from the state statutes and the regulations, that was never an option available to us. So I don't see that as being taken away from us.
Okay. But I like the idea of the dead end. Councilor Lewis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Chief Lindstrom, thank you for your time and your effort in researching all this. I too like the idea of the speed bumps, but if we can't do it, can't do it. I just came back from a trip in another country, and it's almost like they had one road, and there wasn't really much of a speed limit or enforceable, but you had to slow down for these speed bumps. But as trucks would accelerate and slow down, I see the problem with that. What we'd be interested in is, which you did approach, is is not what we want to do, but what can we do, what's legally allowable for us to do. Would it be possible, I like the idea of sending a letter to the business owners, the principals of the business. Would it be possible for you or for us to facilitate a meeting or discussion with the residents that are affected, with the business owners, and have like a little town hall meeting with them and get a meeting of the minds? Because obviously your data shows the smallest space and the smallest number of residents are on this route, which makes the most sense from a data point of view, but those 34 residents feel like they have as much right as anyone else to quality of their neighborhood and peace and traffic and safety and whatnot. So we don't want to disregard that, even though they fit the percentage of people that get dinged for this. So would that be reasonable next step, is to try and facilitate a meeting of minds of those residents, if they're willing, with the business? Because there needs to be an agreement of something.
I'm not opposed to it, but I think that if the legal construct, the legal paradigm exists, I don't know what we're looking to change by having that meeting. And unfortunately, if you put 100 people in the room, you're going to have 95 opinions on what we should do. And my fear is that they would slow down progress towards what? Because we can't change state statute language, we can't change regulatory language, so we can yank our local signs out of there. Can we leave the ones that say, trucks are requested to turn left here as they come up off of Talbot, or if they come up off of Nutmeg South? Yeah, we can leave those there. I don't see an issue
We
with
can
that.
promote goodwill. Businesses in town can say, we're going to request of our trucking companies to go this route, because if they want to continue to do business with us, that's what we want them to do, because we like the community we do business in. So we can go and promote goodwill on the faith that that's their intention. And if we expect the best out of people, maybe we'll get surprised and get the best.
I don't disagree with you, I just don't know, I don't know what you'll get out of that, but
We don't know, but we should try.
Go for it. Yeah, I honestly, I think that if you put a group of the people that signed the petition and the business owners, they have conflicting interests, right? And they can negotiate, they can try to come to an arrangement, but that arrangement has to fall within the legal paradigm that we're working within. So
Well,
I don't know quite what, I received a lot of phone calls in the last week, a lot of emails in the last week, some from you folks, some from the people behind me, about here's what the good ideas are. Okay, that's great, and I respect the ideas, but if they don't fit within what we can do, speed humps, one-way traffic. I appreciate everyone's efforts to try to figure this out, but there's certain things we can and certain things we can't do, and I don't want to mislead the community or the business community by getting people together and saying, hey, okay, what does everyone think, when a lot of those ideas, from what I've read and what I've discussed, aren't viable options. But I'm not saying no, I'm just saying,
right.
I'm always leery of what, the intention is this. What are the possible unintended consequences? That's all I'm saying.
So I found that when working with people, when one's perspective changes, everything changes. And if you meet with someone, you see that their intentions, there's a lot of common ground here. The residents need the businesses to help support our community and to bring the goods and services in the community. And the businesses likewise need the citizens. There's a lot more common ground than we give the credit for. And when we do that, there tends to be more of a spirit of cooperation when one or both sides adjust their perspective a little bit. There can't be a my way or the highway kind of approach here, but there's got to be. The only way we're going to find a possible solution is with cooperation. And we can't get it unless we ask for it.
Yep, we can do it. That's fine. Any other questions?
Councilor Pendleton, if you could wait 1 second, I guess Deputy Mayor has one question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's more of just a comment. I know you talked about interfering with commerce and whatnot. My family has been in the transportation business my entire life. I'm actually a owner of a company that deals with transportation, and myself as a project manager, when I'm selling a project, a tractor trailer isn't the only way to get to a business or a warehouse or a dock. we use what are called shuttle trucks. So the first thing I always ask, and that's my responsibility when I'm looking at a project, is this tractor trailer accessible? If they say no, well, now I know that, and it's my duty to now include in the cost the use of an additional smaller truck, whether it's a little pack van up to a 26-foot straight truck. And if I don't do my due diligence and I show up to that project and a tractor trailer can't get in, now I'm not going to go back and charge my customer that. That's on me. So I know that, and these businesses know that. And if we do have some sort of weight restriction, we're not interfering with anything. There's smaller trucks, we call it final mile, we call it shuttle trucks, whatever you want to call it. There are other options on how to get in there. So I don't think we would be interfering with anything.
I don't necessarily agree. I appreciate what you're saying, but the weight restriction is one issue, but OSTA very clearly says that you can't enact a weight restriction ordinance that's a de facto through truck prohibition. And that's what would be exact. I mean, I hate to say it, and I don't have the answer for the folks behind me, and I feel badly that the trucks rumble through their neighborhood. I don't want them rumbling through my neighborhood. But the fact of the matter is that's exactly what we would be doing, is enacting a de facto through truck prohibition.
Well, of course, I don't want to be breaking any laws, rules, regulations, what have you, but I do know that it is our responsibility to look into this further, because we've had, I would guess, almost every single household come through this town hall and speak about this. So my bigger concern is figuring out if there is something we can do, because I do know that nobody's going to be, you're talking about like $100, $120 or whatever for them to take an extra half hour to have a smaller truck go load it. So I don't
Right,
think
but I can't make them do that. That's what I'm trying to say. Whether it's $120 or 120,000 or 120 million, I can't make them do that.
If there is a way for us to do something and help these residents, then I think we should explore it.
I think that would be more on the town attorney and the town manager's side.
Correct. Yeah, sure. I'm not saying the chief knows that answer, but I do think we definitely need to not necessarily take this document or report and just say, well, we can't do anything, because that's what we pay the attorney for, to try to figure out if there is something we can do.
The only thing that I would caution the town on moving forward is exactly what OSTA cautioned them on in the report, and that is displacing the traffic to another less suitable area where potentially more people are impacted, a longer route. You know, if you go down to Pleasant Valley, you're going past VMP, there's more cars, more kids, more pedestrians, more bicycles. That's the concern. And like I said, I know that the crowd here doesn't want to hear it. I know no one in the area wants to hear it, but that's the shortest, most direct route into that industrial area than any of the others.
Sure.
If you're coming from that eastern side. So that, you know, we just don't want to create another problem somewhere else because we're solving this problem.
Yeah.
And I don't know,
100%.
like I said, I don't know the answer, and I feel badly saying that to you. I feel bad, even more badly for these folks. I don't know the answer, but I do know what the existing legal structure is and the statutory structure, and we're stuck.
Thank you.
Yep.
Councilor Pendleton?
Thank you. Thank you, Chief, for this report and all the time and energy you put into this in the email
And
that
just
you
to clarify, it's not my report.
well-
I just emailed it.
Right, but
Yeah.
thank you for getting involved
Yeah.
in getting this up. I know this has been going on for many, many years. I think I want to make a statement that, and I think I made this statement before, that some of the folks sitting here in this room purchased their homes prior to an industrial development over there on Nutmeg and North and Satellite and all of that. Normally, we get the complaints after, you know, the residents complain after because somebody now, they've been there first and then they wanted to do it. But the residents were here first, so I understand, you know, where they're coming from, and really the choice of an industrial park being built over there really wasn't in their cards, you know, looking at the future. So I hear what they're saying. I live over there, and it's not just Governors and Belden. It's Cody and it's Hilton. And there's 300 houses in Hilton. And Hilton takes Belden to Governors to Route 5. I want to go to Sullivan Avenue, but I don't want to go up Ellington Road, so I'm going to take Route 5, and then I'm going to get on Sullivan Avenue to go to the Jamaican restaurant or something. I don't want to go the whole long way around town. So a dead end wouldn't work for us. It would have to send us out through Hilton Drive, all the way down to Pleasant Valley Road, to go over that way, to drive back to where we want to go north. if I want to shop at Harkins, or if I want to go somewhere, you know, on Sullivan Avenue. It wouldn't be wise to make a dead end for us to have to do that. The other thing in the letters to the commercial buildings is great, and I always ask, could you please put up a truck sign that says, you know, here's my other one. We're trying so hard to stop what we have going on right now. Is there a way that we can work with it? Instead of the ordinance signs, can we make a sign that says suggested truck route? We have those in larger cities that say best truck route or suggested truck route, or when we have trucks getting off of 291 and 384 right there, they come over the bridge, they get down where it says welcome to South Windsor. Instead of going across Ellington Road, put up the sign with an arrow that says best truck route. You know, we're not stopping them, we're not interfering with, we're suggesting a better truck route for them to go. If we can look at the trucks that come in from East Hartford, instead of Ellington Road, have one on Route 5, you know, that says best truck route with an arrow straight ahead to lead them up Route 5. To come in from the east, same thing. When they get off at 84, they come down, they take Pleasant Valley Road. Let's give them a different suggestion, best truck route or something. We can make those signs here in town that would say, even at the end of, not knowing the name of the road, I can't think of it, Connecticut Avenue, best truck route with an arrow pointing down towards Route 5. Let us work with what we have at hand. And no, speed humps won't work, especially for, and I'm not speaking for the chief, fire department. They respond to the industrial park, down Governor's Highway. Speed bumps there wouldn't be a good idea. Plus, speed bumps wouldn't be a good idea for tractor trailers because it would only make them louder when they go over them. So the only, I think my question is, there's a couple of things that, you know, I just want to talk about here, is the shape of the road of the intersections at the end of Belden and at the end of Governor's Highway. Best truck route, not to turn on Governor's Highway, put it on Ellington Road with an arrow shooting them down to a straighter road, to a better intersection, to a better, even Chapel Road. If they went down to Chapel Road, it's a larger intersection. Then they can take Chapel down to Route 5 and go up or something. But the way that those roads are, Governor's comes out at an angle, Belden is out at an angle, they weren't, I think they did them to try to stop the trucks, to create the road shape that way. So maybe we can definitely put best truck route with an arrow in some other direction. Yes, they do turn wide. Yes, I was sitting at the light. But I'm just saying, to work with that intersection somehow.
Yeah, we're very limited on what we can put up on state roads.
It's what?
We're very limited on what signs we can put on state roads. Route 30, Route 5, 194. Oakland Road is Route 30 also. Route 74.
Well, we
Those
have.
are state roads. We can't just throw signs on that street. They'll email me and say, take them down. So we can ask, but they're.
It's just a suggested best.
No, and I hear you. And that's
and
what
I'm not interfering with commerce.
No,
I just
I'm
want
not
to
saying
get
you
them.
are. I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying that you know, we have to also be careful of over signage.
Right.
Right. You drive down Nevers Road and you think you're driving across a tarmac at O'Hare. There's signs everywhere, times of day and directions and, you know, holy Moses. So what do people do? They defer to this because it's on their dashboard and it will tell them when to turn.
That's exactly what the driver did, and
So
he
they
was
come
from
off of-
Canada.
they come
He
off of
had
two-
no idea where he was going, did his GPS from Canada, came down Ellington Road and turned onto Governor's Highway and almost hit me.
So you
I
could-
followed him and had a little conversation. So yeah, that's what they do. But if we have a signage even on personal property, we own 10 feet of the road, something, let's, you hear me?
Yes, and
I'm frustrated.
And that's what I said to Councilor Carey before the meeting. I'm frustrated.
Right.
And some of my frustration lies in the fact that the petition and the town, you know, one of the tenets of our mission statement is to be responsive to the public's needs.
Right.
That doesn't mean I can abandon the legal paradigm.
Right.
But we respond to the public's needs and ask for the investigation. The investigation comes back and says, nope, can't do it. Well, now we're gonna really try to find a way to do it. And I don't know that that's the right thing to do, because we're gonna displace it, first of all. They have to go somewhere. The trucks have to get from A to B.
Mm-hmm. So while I have you here, and I'm just going to throw this in really quick, I've noticed that there's been many car accidents at the New Pride gas station intersection, which is also trucks coming down Route 5 and leaving many accidents there. Just grabbing your ear, is there a way to put up a sign on Route 5, north and
Not without the state's permission.
We'll get the permission that says.
We've tried that.
No, listen, it says stop when flashing. You go down a huge hill, you can't see the light at the bottom. The sign flashes to tell you you're going to stop ahead.
Can I play devil's advocate for 1 second? Are you talking about a huge hill on Route 5? Or using that as an example?
No, I'm using Nutmeg Road. Is it, no, what's that road?
I don't know.
Governor's Highway
Yeah.
and Route 5,
Yeah.
right in front of the Pride gas station. If the state could put two signs, north and south Route 5, that say stop ahead when flashing, and then the flashing lights flash, so you know you have to stop ahead.
That's what the red, yellow, and green are for.
No, you can't see those when you're behind a tractor trailer. There's just been a lot of accidents over there. I'm just saying, to help prevent them, maybe put just a suggestion. You're the traffic guy. Sorry. I'm done.
Counselor Fitzgerald?
Hi, thank you, Chief, for the report. This is super frustrating, and this question probably is definitely not directed at you. It's probably more for our town manager. But several years ago, I know, I think it was a federal program, but maybe not, for houses up near the airport, for them to have there was some sort of grant funding or whatever to replace the windows to make them more soundproof in the houses, like in the flight paths. Obviously, this would only address one small piece of the problem, but is there any way to look and see if there's some sort of grant funding out there that could be made available to the residents on those streets to at least, replace their windows with more soundproof windows?
Yeah, that program was federal for sure, because of the airport that was there and everything. I can certainly try to dig around and see if we could find anything. I would reiterate, though, the chief mentioned it briefly earlier, and I think this is what we've had the most success with in town so far, is to reach out to the businesses on that road and ask them if they can try to direct as much truck traffic in the opposite direction. We were very successful with Coca-Cola. We were very successful with Home Depot. I think we can probably be equally as successful between the chief and myself doing that. And that'll probably be the most successful opportunity or solution or easiest solution that we have out there. And it's going to cost us
Certainly the cheapest.
a couple stamps and some paper for sure. So I think while I get everybody being frustrated with not being able to have some silver bullet to solve this today, that's about the best that I think we can probably try to do. And then over time, what we've seen with Home Depot and Coca-Cola, culture takes over and people learn that they need to drive a certain way. It's easier, it's better for whatever reasons, and that's what ends up happening. So
I do think it would be worth it to also really look at the reconstruction plans before they break ground and start putting, and I don't know how far along they are. I don't know if they're signed, sealed, and delivered, but if we, like I said, every time we flatten, straighten, widen, and smooth a roadway, you're asking for bigger, faster travel, right? And I talked to so many people about the cars are engineered better now, so you can easily be rolling down some of these streets and look down and you're going 50 and you don't even know it. And I'm not saying that's an excuse. I'm just saying, and OSTA's report even says, and I'm surprised they put it in there, that people will drive at the speed they feel comfortable, not at what the sign says, especially when there's signs everywhere about everything. So I really think the town should look hard at, and it's beyond my area of expertise, but really look hard at the engineering and what are we gonna do to Governor's Highway, and go from there. So I do agree, let's start with a letter, get some information out there. One of the residents I spoke to, we can try and get the speed trailers down there and make people aware of how fast they're going or not going in that area. Those are all things that we can do. But unfortunately, the request for a through truck prohibition is a non-starter, and I'm very fearful that any weight class restriction outside of that is going to be viewed as an end around, which would be a de facto prohibition. Before I wrap up, I just want to speak to the crowd behind me. whenever I make decisions like this and encounter issues like this, I use what I call my mom test. And what would I tell my mom? If my mom lived on Governor's Highway, what would I tell her? And if my mom came to me and said, hey, we really need to get rid of the trucks, I have to apply the law as it stands. One of the biggest frustrations for me as a police chief is to enforce the laws that I don't agree with, no matter what it is. And there's a lot of them out there that I don't personally agree with, but that doesn't mean they're not the law. So I feel very badly for you. I'll work with the community and try to find a way to do this, but we have to do it within the existing legal structure, that being the statutes and regulations from the state. So I feel badly for you. Our traffic unit is trying to give the area extra attention. We'll get some trailers down there. There's a few other things we can try to do to get real good, accurate speed counts and traffic counts. But when these decisions are made, they're not made without thinking about you. And what if my mom was your neighbor? What would I tell her? Unfortunately, in this circumstance, I'd say, Mom, I don't know. And that's what I'm telling you folks. I don't know the answer. But I do know I did what you asked me to do by asking for the investigation. We don't love the answer as a municipality. Doesn't mean we're dead in the water. I think that particular option is all but dead in the water. But to the manager's point I made earlier, I think there are some other things we can try to look at. Unfortunately, it won't be solved tonight, but let's not throw in the towel and give up. Let's keep working on it. But we also have to be thinking about things like displacing the problem, and there's a lot of layers to the onion. So I just wanted you guys to know that I'm not making the decision blindly or without thinking about the quality of life down there and the community at large. So if anyone has any other questions, by all means. If not, then
I have one more. I'm not sure if it's you or the town attorney, but the resident who has the tractor trailer driving on his property all the time on Belden, what can be done about that?
we have to look at, I think we have to look at the engineering, you know, how is the road engineered? Is it one particular driver? Is it one particular style of vehicle? Is it one particular circumstance? Let's really pin down what the circumstance is and find out why that's happening. There shouldn't be.
Yes, the tractor trailer, and he comes down and he hits that guardrail.
Okay, so coming from which direction?
Going towards Mill on the River.
From on Belden, coming down the hill towards the mill. If you put it in neutral and just coast, you'll end up in Helmar's parking lot. Is that?
Well, yeah, because it's under Mr. Edlin's property.
I don't know who that is, though.
Right.
I don't know which
Yeah,
property that is. That's
so
like when Sergeant Martin used to tell us to meet him at Vulcan Radiator, and we'd look at him and say, what is that? That's not a thing anymore. That's Meztec. I don't know.
Yeah, he's going towards the Mill on the River. There's the guardrail.
On Belden.
Yes, on
Yep.
Belden. So he's going eastbound, east,
Okay.
southeast, or whatever that is. And he cuts onto his property and then hits the guardrail, and I don't know which way.
Is that property on the left or the right as you go down that hill?
On the right-hand side.
So he's going down and
The truck is going down
I
towards.
got that. The truck's going down and turning right onto 30?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, that's the property she's talking about. So some truck is coming down Belden, taking it right onto Ellington, Road River is now on the left, and he hits that,
And driving on Chris's property. Yep, yep.
Okay. Yeah, we can look at it. We can look at how it's engineered, and if we need to. And again, one of the issues that complicates the matter is that we don't have dominion or jurisdiction or authority over Route 30. So how that happens when those two streets intersect, who owns what, and who's in charge of the design, I don't know if it boils down to, you know, the definition of an intersection by traffic standard is, not to bore you, but it's the imaginary elongation of curb lines extended. I don't know if that applies to determining who owns what and who can fix what in terms of curb lines and angles and things like that. But we can certainly look at it. It might not be, I'm not doing the South Windsor salute here. It might not be us. It might be engineering.
Okay.
It might be Public Works. But we can look at it. I'll make a note. I have another note to try to get a speed trailer out on Belden. And I have that address. So I'll make a note to try to fit. What is it? Edlund?
E-D-L-U-N-D. Yep.
On the right as you're going down the hill. Okay. We can look at it, and like I said, it might not be us, but we can you know, even through local road safety. We call it the Local Road Safety Committee, when in fact it's not a town committee, so Local Road Safety Group, they can look at that too. And then you have, that's kind of a multidisciplinary group. You have law enforcement, you have engineering, I think Public Works is on that. So that's another avenue we can maybe suggest that public road safety, local road safety, look at that, not public roads, local road safety, look at that. But yeah, we can certainly address it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Seeing none, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Okay, moving on to 13B, LoCIP funds for replacement of police department elevator. Mr. Majors.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of the council. Thank you for the opportunity. I am requesting some LoCIP money for the police department elevator modernization. The elevator is original to the building in 1983. It is absolutely due for a modernization as opposed to a replacement. It's a little bit cheaper to do a modernization and it's code compliant. We will update it with all the fancy bells and whistles for ADA, and part of the money, the 175 from LoCIP and part from capital non-recurring down the road. Be glad to answer any questions you have about it.
Anyone have any questions?
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
And you're up for 13C. Discussion of transfer of funds from capital non-reoccurring to the library chiller project.
Yeah, so we have some of the capital money already allocated for this project. We need the rest of the money to complete the funding that we need for it. The chiller was installed in 1996, 97 when the renovation happened. It does contain a banned refrigerant called R22. It is an ozone depleting chemical, which is no longer allowed. So we will replace a chiller with a newer type of refrigerant and hopefully have no issues doing that.
Anyone have any questions? Seeing Councilor Pendleton.
Thank you. Knowing that this was discussed in capital projects meeting, correct?
That's correct.
And where does it fall in our listing of projects, like 1 through 10? Do we know?
I'm sorry,
on the list?
I don't know.
We don't know,
I don't
but
know
it was
off the
up
top
there
of my head.
because we would have a problem with the, it's the same thing like with the library at the high school, where we'd have a problem with the books if we had the humidity and the moisture and everything get into the library and ruin the books.
Yeah, of course, anytime you have that atmosphere inside the library, it's gonna.
So this is one of our
affect all the
10,
neighborhoods.
the top 10 projects?
This was funded this year.
Yeah, from this year, one of the top 10s, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
I couldn't remember where it
next
fell.
fiscal year. It was approved this year for next fiscal year.
Got it, thank you.
You're welcome.
Seeing nothing further. I think you're set.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. 13D has been removed. Moving on to 13E, discussion item plan of conservation, suggested changes and decisions by town council, requested by Councilor Carey, Michelle Lipe, Director of Planning.
Do you want it, Michelle? Oh, sorry. Did you call? I never know if I'm being called on or not.
Hi, Michelle
Hi.
Lipe, Director of Planning. I'd be glad to answer any questions. This is really your public hearing to collect any information that you want to share with the Planning and Zoning Commission. I don't know, Councilor Carey, if you want to comment any more. I mean, this is the culmination of 18 months of work of the Planning and Zoning, the Plan and Conservation Development with the consultant. There are 4 very meaty documents out on our website, which were the documents that kind of fed into the plan that the Planning and Zoning worked on. There was a community survey, a couple of community workshops that were done. I just did want to make one comment about Eric's comment about the recreation fields and whatnot. You'll notice very early on in the plan, there's about 6 different plans that are referenced. The Park and Recreation Plan of 2020 is one of them. So those are all incorporated by reference, so that's why the fields and those kinds of things do not show up in this particular plan.
Councilor Carey?
So we have to make a decision tonight. I had Kathleen give us the information. We can move to endorse, reject, or make amendments. to the Town Plan of Conservation. Based on the public hearing and the feedback that we got, my recommendation would be move to endorse the Town Plan of Conservation and Development.
Okay, it's not a resolution. How do we?
It was at your place, Sunny. It's a discussion item on our agenda, and then the verbiage that we need to use to endorse or reject or make amendments was Kathleen put it in everybody's
Well,
place.
how about we discuss it?
So it's.
Oh, yeah, we can discuss it too.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, as a point of order, I don't believe you have to actually have any action on it. You can just do nothing as well, in which case it would move forward.
That's correct. You basically have 65 days. It was given to you, and if you hold a public hearing, you can take no action at all. You could endorse it. You could endorse it saying, we hope you address some of the public comments you received. You could reject a portion of it. Ultimately, it is Planning and Zoning's document to adopt. What happens is if there's a portion of it that you actually reject, then it is up to the Planning and Zoning to, if they were to keep that in there, to override it by a 2/3 majority. Otherwise, any of your comments would certainly be brought to the public hearing and would be entertained at the public hearing, as is, it will be an open public hearing for all the public comments as well. And that would be next Tuesday, the 25th.
So the comments that you heard tonight, will those be taken into consideration?
Those folks, I would assume, will be attending next week as well. I know at least 2 out of the 3 were planning on it. So, yeah, that is where the Planning and Zoning would take up other additional comments.
Okay. Councilor Lewis?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I attended some of the sessions, some of the group sessions, and participated in the survey, and I agree with the comments made by the gentleman tonight. It was a very small representation of the community. It does not represent South Windsor as a town. I felt, and this is my observation, I don't want to slight anyone. A lot of effort, a lot of time and money was spent in developing this, but I felt from a business point of view or from where I was sitting back on it, I think even this was before I was in this position as a town councilor, that it was being steered to a predetermined direction. And I didn't agree with that. I didn't think it represented the town. I saw some people put in little votes more than once to certain areas. They went and they got more. And it just didn't seem right to me. So I'd like to do I agree with several of the comments, some of which by Mr. Koskowski, that we as the town councils, I wouldn't mind if we established a time to where we had like a retreat to where we decided on vision in 10 years down the road. Because we have all these committees that we're responsible to, but we haven't yet established a group vision of how we see with our collective interest and talents and gifts as where the town should be going, what's best for it, and what do we mean by conservation, what's to be saved, what's the future. I don't think we can run a town by committee. I think it needs to be done collectively, and I don't think this represents a collective will. That's just, again, that's just my opinion, but I did show up at the meetings, and I did participate, I did express opinions, but I just did that as one person. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor King?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So there's only really 3 things. One, thanking Ms. Scho for being here in regards to this. So my first question is, was the Strategic Planning Committee that also did a survey and did all of this work, was that taken into consideration?
Yeah, actually, if you recall the timing of it, the strategic planning survey happened first.
Yep.
And we actually looked at the results of that to help inform some of the questions that went into the Plan of Conservation and Development. So it did piggyback right after that.
Okay, thank you. And not to, I am not a fan of redundant work. I can't stand it. If I'm asked to be in a certain position and to do a job, expect that I do it, expect that I take time from my family, my job, unpaid, sit on a committee, sit on a commission, give my thoughts, give my ideas, and then to suggest that you need our body to then double down on it, well, then that's just a waste of my time. I say that just to say that we had a strategic planning committee that went in, which is the reason I asked that question, because then that would have been a waste of my time. We had people from the community and included, and my previous counselor was with me on that committee, and I'm thankful that he's here to provide the insight that he's given. We even had young people there, which is something that for some crazy reason our town neglects to do when we make the decisions for 10 years down the road, for 5 years down the road. We might all be dead, but our young people are still be here, and yet they're never asked for their opinions. We had their opinions when we had our strategic planning committee. And there were two, at one point there were three, but two of them that were very integral to the decisions that the final report that that town council then voted on. And so I am not, you know, I mean, we don't get snacks, you know, after our meeting. I'm not going on a retreat. So that's out. That said, though, on page 1-2, and this was brought up, and I have to admit, I agree, that, you know, providing undeveloped land for space, if we did the survey, and you had 600 people that said that. But at the bottom, it says increasing business development, you had 79. I'm also an individual that says you get what you pay for. You also get what you ask for. That's how our elections work, whether you like it or not. You can't say this is what you want, this is what you voted for, this is what you asked for, and then when you get it, you cry about it. And I'm not suggesting that our residents are doing that. However, what I am suggesting is that even though they said at a rate of 600, whatever that number may be, in regards to preserving undeveloped land for open space, but 79 and 86 as far as housing and increasing business development, is it fair to say that if we don't have businesses paying taxes, that the residents' taxes will be increased if we don't have something to offset that, i.e. business?
I would say that's fair to say, yes.
I'm sorry.
I would say that it's fair to say.
One more time? And there's a point to that, because if we don't have the businesses, then you cannot complain, regardless of who says they can cut taxes, your taxes can't be cut. They will fall on the resident. Now, again, the public has spoken, but you can't live in a false reality either, you know? So I just want to be clear with the brother that came up and spoke on the podium. I get it, comes up, speaks very eloquently. What do you want to do? Because I've seen you at one meeting talking about taxes, and I've seen you at another meeting saying, no, we don't want any more businesses. You can't have it both ways. In order to offset, especially in a town growing like South Windsor, we do need to figure that out. My final point, and I just needed to say that because sometimes I think we forget as we go down the road, well, we made a decision back in 2024, just like they made a decision back in 1986. There was a reason for that decision. And at that time, this is what that community faced. South Windsor is a growing community, and the one thing that and I have to reread this again, because I read it twice, but is from a technology standpoint, what can we do? Like, say, for example, on page 614, thank you, Lord, it says improve aesthetics and appearance in the Route 5 corridor. Work with CT Dot. All right. Strengthen the landscaping, parking. All right, so we go to Home Depot and lay some more stuff down. I think to another resident's point, I think we do need to be a little bit more specific on how we do it, if for no other reason, to give them a roadmap as to how to get to that point. Outside of that, I do respect and I do appreciate the time that was spent on this. But again, we're not making a decision tonight. We're just really having this conversation as a discussion item. But that was just a couple of my concerns in regards to taxes. How does this affect our taxes if we do preserve the undeveloped land, if we don't increase the business development? Was the strategic plan, you said yes, so that's a good thing. And also just not being redundant in regards to our efforts. I don't go to the Patriotic Commission. I trust that they're doing their job, and I say thank you. And if I agree, I agree. If I don't say I disagree with you, let's have another meeting. I had that opportunity. So I say that also for our residents as well. We have a lot of commissions. I digress, but we have a lot of commissions. We have a lot of committees. Residents can be a part of those and give input at that time as well. And unfortunately, just for one moment, Madam Mayor, when we don't have enough people showing up and so that we don't have a quorum, that's just a bigger issue. So you can't say you didn't have an opportunity to put input on this when you didn't even show up. So I appreciate the work that was put in. Some stuff I probably will disagree with, but I think that, this is a good step forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Pendleton?
Thank you. Thank you for the hard work that was done by the committee that worked on this, on the Plan of Conservation and Development, and the committee that volunteered their time to go over this. This is beautiful, actually. It's a really beautiful document with all the details and information, and there's a lot of details in here. And I'm going to beg that you give me a little bit more time to reread this again and get all the details, especially after hearing the comments this evening from the public. I like to verify and confirm what was being said. So I'm not looking to do anything. You said we have 65 days to accept this, change this, amend this?
You're actually at the end of it. Our public hearing is next Tuesday, the 25th. June 25th is public hearing will be opened.
And why are we just getting this now then?
It was sent 65 days ago.
This was sent 65, I don't think so.
No, it was forwarded to the council.
We all got a copy
Councilor
of it.
Carey?
Sorry, we all got a copy of it, and we got a copy of it in April. And so that was, that's why I had the little note put on your tables, because we had a copy of it. We actually have a second copy because there were some changes, little wording changes, but we have had this since April to look at and review. And tonight is the last night that we get to really make any comments, or it just goes to Planning and Zoning's public hearing.
Well, you're holding a public hearing on it at the 11th hour, and people are coming up with their suggestions that we haven't even heard until this evening. So we're supposed to discuss what folks have suggested or have complained, because the vote was 10-2. That was here. Vote no. So 10 no. But folks have made comments this evening that we should take into consideration, that we have to discuss to then forward on to Michelle by next Tuesday or by tonight.
The public hearing is next Tuesday, starting at 7
Public
p.m.
hearing, but ours was this evening, where the public has spoken and they voted 10 no and 2 yes. So it causes me pause to say, did they read it? Do they know everything that's going on? Maybe they have input. Maybe their comments are legitimate, to give us an opportunity to look this through. So your deadline is today or next Tuesday of 65 days?
The Planning and Zoning is holding its public hearing next Tuesday. That is more than 65 days. They're required by law to have a 65-day comment period, or a quiet period, if you will. It's been out on the website for 65 days. It's been circulated to every board and commission chair, received it.
But to get our comments, when is the last?
They should be submitted at the public hearing next Tuesday night. I do not know if the public hearing will stay open or not, but they should be submitted at the public hearing. Again, if you choose to make comment, you don't have to make comments.
Okay, so we're going to discuss it this evening. We're going to come up any decision tonight, and any ideas, suggestions, accept it, not accept it, change it, look at what the folks have to say. We're just going to say, okay, we're done, here you go. Because our public hearing to hear from our public was this evening. We're in the 11th hour.
Correct.
So it's really not giving us a whole lot of time for us to make a decision on how we feel about the plan of conservation and development, because this is being held so late in the game. So what do we do? Say nothing, let it go forward? Do we discuss the suggestions? Do we look at this? What do we do? But you want it by public hearing, next Tuesday?
It's required to be submitted to the public hearing, yes.
Okay. So maybe we can make suggestions by email to the town, to the mayor, who then can forward, or town manager.
Could I-
Hey, you, that's
Yeah,
it, you.
so could I make a suggestion? Because you held a
Yes.
public hearing tonight. Why don't we forward the results of that public hearing to the Planning and Zoning Commission? I can easily have Kathy send those meeting minutes over to them, and then they can look into whatever comments were made by the public themselves. Seeing as the Planning and Zoning Commission, in theory, are the drafters of the plan, it would be their job to actually do that. And then if any of you have specific comments that you individually have related to the plan that you would like to get incorporated or have planning and zoning consider, all of you can also email planning and zoning or comment at their public hearing, which is what, next week? Yeah, next Tuesday.
Tuesday, 25th.
So,
There's
while
a
I realize
solution.
you're at the end of the time for the council itself, the council is not the drafter of the plan, nor the approver of the plan. So as a result, why don't we just take the public hearing minutes, we'll send that to planning and zoning, so that gets incorporated with it. And if any of you have any other thoughts, you can then send it to planning and zoning individually.
Okay, thank you. There's a solution.
Okay.
That was easy. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Siracusa.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, I don't know, my thought was we were supposed to come prepared with our comments since we've had this in our possession since April. I think the public hearing was supposed to be in addition to our notes, and the responsibility as a council is we're supposed to be checking our email, checking the documents that we're getting, reviewing those, and not, I guess, saying we don't have the proper amount of time to make these decisions, since we've had it for, was it 65 days exactly?
Yes, it's been
Yeah.
longer than 65.
What's that? Oh, I'm prepared. I have none. My point is that I knew I had it. I reviewed it and looked at it, and I do agree that it doesn't necessarily line up with that survey. Agree with Councilor King, agree with previous Councilor Kozakowski. I don't know, I'm a little worried that the gentleman coming in to speak and talking about developing over 600 housing units in our town is a little tone deaf of what's going on in our town. And you want to talk about what's going to be expensive is having to build a whole nother school due to increased population. So those are my comments, I guess.
Anything further? Yes, Councilor King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. What time Tuesday?
7 p.m.
Thank you.
Councilor Carey?
Michelle, I apologize that I didn't say thank you very much for all the work that went into this. And I know, a lot of energy. And there were 2 open forums for the public. It was advertised. It was on the digital boards. I think the first one got better attendance than the second one. But, there isn't any way to control who attends these things. But there was definite attendance. But thank you very much. So we're going to just leave it.
I think that,
Okay,
we don't
so
have
that's
to
what
do.
we're going to do.
So if I can, I'll just put one more pitch out there to the public, that it is out on our website, the Plan of Conservation Development Draft. Again, there are 4 other documents that are great documents that give a lot of background about our community. There was a lot of homework that went into preparing this plan, and I highly encourage folks to look at those documents because it'll tell you a lot about where we stand right now as a community. And secondly, just a brief comment on the survey. You know, the survey was very informative. The Plan of Conservation and Development is very prescriptive in the law as to what it has to include. It has to include things like about housing and about economic development, a whole range of open space and things like that. So a lot of times, I mean, people don't want housing, but it's the responsibility of the Planning and Zoning Commission to plan for housing. So although sometimes it doesn't seem like it's responsive to exactly what the public may have wanted, there was a certain amount of responsibility the commission has out of the law that has to be included in this 10-year plan. So I just wanted to make that comment as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Michelle.
And I thank you all for taking the time to look at it.
Thank you so much. Moving on to 13F, Councilor Balboni. How fast can you read?
Resolution approving the renaming of Project Emergency Generator at Community Houses at Flax Hill and Wapping Muse to Emergency Generators. Walter Summers to be present. Whereas on December 20th, 2021, the Town Council approved a project named Emergency Generators at Community Houses at Flax Hill and Wapping Muse. And whereas the Town Council allocated Federal Emergency Management Agency reimbursement proceeds from Storm Isaias to establish this fund. And whereas the Town of South Windsor allocated $80,000 for this project. And whereas the town has spent $14,400 on design and plans for the project. And whereas the Town of South Windsor has been informed of the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development's desire to provide emergency generators to power the entire complex. And whereas the Town of South Windsor Housing Authority is applying for grants to provide these emergency generators. And whereas the Town of South Windsor has other emergency generator projects to fund. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby approves the renaming of the project fund emergency generator at Community Houses of Flax Hill and Wapping Muse to emergency generators to service and install emergency backup generators and associated equipment at town facilities. Be it further resolved that the Town Council authorizes Town Manager Michael Maniscalco to sign and execute all necessary agreements, documents, and contracts to complete the above-mentioned projects.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Councilor Pendleton.
Mr. Maniscalco, is this where we received the funding for the grant that we applied for? That we discussed at the last couple of meetings, or was that something different?
I'm going to let
I know this has been on for a while.
Yeah, I'm going to let Mr. Summers tell you the story.
In a short brief. So after Storm Isaias, we allocated some of the reimbursement money to 3 projects, and this is one of the projects. And obviously, it's beyond our scope, and hopefully the Housing Authority, which is working with the Small Cities Grant, and with their critical needs stuff, that's what they're going to be working on, because HUD really wants to power the whole complex, which is beyond the scope that we thought we had there. So, yeah.
Now, was this also brought up at Capitol, where there was some money at Capitol for this or not?
This is outside of Capitol. This,
Okay.
this was not brought up in Capitol, it was separate funds.
Okay, and the gentleman that came and spoke to us about Flax Hill before, he was here, he was talking about the emergency generators are applying for a grant for that. Is that in conjunction to this?
So their group is going to work on their critical needs report to CHFA and HUD, and that's where they're going to work on the project, correct?
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none? Thank you, Mr. Summers. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Moving on to 13G, Councilor Lewis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Resolution setting a time and place to receive citizen input on the library chiller project and the use of capital non-recurring funds. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby sets Monday, July 1st, 2024 at 8 p.m. in the Town Council chambers in the South Windsor Town Hall, 1540 Sullivan Avenue, South Windsor, Connecticut, at the time and place for a public hearing to receive citizen input on the use of $100,000 of capital non-recurring funds for the library chiller project.
We have a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Councilor Lewis? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. 13H, Councilor Baganski. You can read fast too.
Resolution authorizing the appropriation of $175,208.41 of LoCIP funds to cover costs associated with the replacement of the South Windsor Police Department elevator. Whereas the town council wishes to use $175,208.41 in LoCIP funds to pay for the replacement of the South Windsor Police Department elevator, and whereas the required public hearing was held on Monday, June 17th, 2024, now therefore be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby authorizes the town manager to apply to the state of Connecticut Office of Policy and Management to use $175,208.41 in LoCIP funds to cover costs associated with the replacement of the police department elevator.
Okay, I have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Counselor Pendleton?
Mr. Majors, if I could. I see that it says replacement. Is that creating a whole new hole in the wall to get the elevator down, or replacing what's presently there in its location, similar to what we did here, like a renovation, replacement?
So that word replacement should be modernization, so I apologize for that.
So it's not,
No, the hoistway stays, so the opening stays. If you gut everything, you just have a hole in the wall, that stays. The car stays. The inside of the car gets replaced, updated. All the buttons, all the bells and whistles, the electronics, the motor, all that stuff gets replaced and upgraded, modernized, if you will.
Is it going to have access for a wheelchair?
There is no space for, ADA wheelchair, yes, I'm sorry, I'm thinking gurney like we did here. A wheelchair, of course. It has to meet the ADA requirements.
Will it meet
It does right now, actually.
It does right now, and it
does,
will continue to do so?
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's not a replacement in the sense of creating a whole new hole in the wall or anything, it's just replacing the guts of the elevator and updating it and getting it up to snuff?
Correct. That's why they
Okay.
call it modernization, not a replacement. I apologize.
So should we change this word?
Here we go, friendly amendment.
What? Should we replace this word to modernization?
You certainly could.
Upgrading and modernization instead of replacing?
Certainly.
Could we do that somebody make a friendly amendment to do that?
You want to make that
Oh,
friendly
could I? Yeah, I'm
amendment?
doing that. I'm making a friendly amendment to do that.
And you accept the friendly amendment? Since you made the resolution.
Yes, I do.
Okay, so we're going to change, there's 3 replacements in here, you were saying? Yeah. So we want to remove the word replacement, and we want to use the words
Modernization.
updating and modernization.
Same thing.
Just modernization?
Yep.
Just modernization,
Please.
okay.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second to the friendly amendment. So all those in favor of the friendly amendment?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. And now we vote on the final resolution. All those in favor of the amended resolution, say aye. Opposed? Hearing none. Motion passes. Moving on to 13I, Councilor King.
Resolution, thank you, Madam Mayor, authorizing the transfer of funds from capital non-reoccurring in the amount of $100,000 to the Police Department Elevator Modernization Project account, interestingly enough. 44808-300, whereas the Police Department elevator is over 40 years and beyond its useful life expectancy, and whereas proposals for the Police Department elevator modernization were recently received totaling $300,000, $100,000 above our current available LoCIP allocation, and whereas by transferring at a total, whereas by transferring a total of $100,000 from the capital non-recurring account to the Police Department Elevator Modernization Project account 44808-300-00320, the project will be fully funded, and whereas the required public hearing was held on Monday, June 17, 2024, now therefore be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby authorizes Town Manager Michael Maniscalco to transfer $100,000 from the capital non-recurring account to fund the Police Department Elevator Modernization Project account.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I caught Councilor King there, the third paragraph from the bottom, whereas by transferring, it says at, should just make a friendly amendment to change that to A.
Yeah, so you accept the friendly amendment, Counselor King? Okay, so we'll vote on the friendly amendment. All those in favor, say aye. Opposed? Hearing none. The amendment passes. All those in favor of the amended resolution, say aye. Opposed? Hearing none. Motion passes. 13J, Counselor Carey.
Resolution accepting the agreement between the Town of South Windsor, Connecticut and Local 1303028 of Council Number 4, AFSCME, AFL-CIO for the period July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2028. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council authorizes Town Manager Michael Maniscalco to enter into a contract between the Town of South Windsor, Connecticut and Local 1303-028 of Council Number 4, American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, AFL-CIO. Said contract to be in effect from July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2028.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. 13K, Counselor Lewis.
Resolution accepting the agreement between the Town of South Windsor, Connecticut and the South Windsor Police Union, Nutmeg Independent Public Safety Employees Union for the period of July 1, 2024 through June 30, 2027. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council authorizes Town Manager Michael Maniscalco to enter into a contract between the Town of South Windsor, Connecticut and South Windsor Police Union, Nutmeg Independent Public Safety Employees Union, and said contract to be in effect from July 1, 2024 through June 30th, 2027.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. 13L, Counselor King.
Resolution approving refund batch 47 for 6 tax refunds totaling $1,419.56. I move that it be resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby approves 6 refunds, the total of said refunds being $1,419.56, and is more fully described in Exhibit A.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Item 14, passage of ordinance. We have none. Item 15, public input for any matter. I'm not going to read it all. Go ahead.
And I stuck it out this long. So Despina Bagansky, 133 Cliffwood Drive. I'm glad that the chief actually mentioned it. I think the town council needs to do something on some of the new roads that are beautiful, like Beelzebub, with the great sidewalks there that are not safe for residents. If you look, that speed trailer that is on Beelzebub has been there for a minimum, because I have a family member who lives on that road, at least since September. You can stand there and watch that it's a game with people trying to see how fast they speed down that road. And maybe sometimes they do it unconsciously as well. But you have children in that neighborhood. You want people to use it to walk, to ride their bikes, and all the things that you hear in all these town council meetings. Something has to be done to slow people down. That is the corridor to Vernon. I think it's now public knowledge that some of these streets are unsafe, and you have a responsibility and a liability to make sure that you address it. So I don't know if it's speed bumps, speed humps, whatever you're talking about. You don't have to worry about the tractor trailers, but it needs to be addressed just for the safety of the residents. That's all I had. Thanks.
Thank you. Seeing no one else. Item 16, communications from the council. Anyone have communications from the council? Okay, we got to extend the meeting because of our executive session. And when we're in executive session, can we extend it again while we're in executive session? Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to extend well, actually, you're supposed to make the motion. Well, it's 5 minutes? At least till 11:30.
To make a motion to extend the meeting till 11:30.
Second.
All those in favor? Well, That's all right, Counselor Pendleton. You can turn your mic on.
We haven't hit 11 o'clock yet. Why are we extending the
Because
meeting
we're
right
going
now? We
into
should be
executive
extending it when
session.
we're in executive sessions, should we not?
So we don't have to do it now
No, I would say that we do it,
while we're in executive session?
yeah, right now we go into executive session.
All right, okay.
Because our meeting is still active till 11.
Retract that motion, and through you, Madam Mayor. you want me to-
Executive session, item 17, Deputy Mayor
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Siracusa.
I'd like to move that we go into executive session, and I'd invite Town Manager Michael Maniscalco to discuss item 17C, personnel issue, Town Manager Michael Maniscalco.
We have a second? All those in favor? And this will conclude our meeting here, and we will adjourn the regular meeting from executive session. Good night.